Well, hello, Larry.
Hello, Larry.
You talk to people all day for a living.
Hello, Larry.
But all those easy answers you are giving, are you really living your life that way? Portland is a long way from LA.
A long way.
Hello, Larry.
Hello, Larry.
Two kids to raise alone just ain't that easy.
Hello, Larry.
The questions they are asking aren't that breezy. The answers you are giving don't always pay. But that's the way it is with kids today. The calls are coming in, you'd better start to grin, 'cause you never know just what they're gonna say.
Hello, Larry.
Hello, Larry.
Hello, Larry.
Hello, Larry.
Hello, Larry.
Wow, hello, Larry.
Welcome to Poker Fraud Alert Radio. I am your host, Todd Dan Druff. This is being recorded and broadcast live on October 22nd, 2025. Right now, the time is 3:41 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time. Such a lovely time of the morning that I'm sure a lot of you guys are awake to hear. I'm sure we're going to have a tremendous live audience at this time. 3:42 now a.m. Pacific, 6:42 a.m. Eastern. I mean, isn't everybody up at this time? I'm sure you all are. But if you're not, of course, you can catch this in the archives because we're easy to find in podcast format. Anyway, I'm just going to do a show. I have prepared some topics for you, some stuff I've wanted to talk about, some stuff I'm sure you want to hear about, including several recent stories that have been in the poker and gambling news, especially on social media. So I'm going to cover all this stuff. I know you guys want to hear it, and I know you want to hear my take. At least I hope you do. I hope that's why you listen to me. Some of you hate listen. That's okay, too, as long as you listen to me. And I know that some of you were not happy with the last show that I did earlier this month. It was a political show. It was a one-topic political show. And some of you didn't like it because you don't want to hear politics, or you don't like my politics and don't want to hear me talk about it. I understand. Some people really liked it, actually, but some people were saying, why are you doing this? I don't like it. Go back to the other stuff. Well, good news for you guys. I am going back to the other stuff. This is going to be an apolitical show. I'm not going to discuss politics at all on this show. So if you don't want to hear about politics, or if you don't want to hear about my politics, then you're in luck, because you're not going to this time. But we do have a number of poker, gambling, and Vegas topics for you, as we usually do, and I'm going to get to them right now. The opening song to this show was the theme song to the late 1970s and also 1980 show called Hello, Larry, which a lot of you probably don't remember. I bet a lot of this audience is old enough to potentially remember, because it was on in 1979, 1980. Even I'm old enough to remember it. And I was actually a big fan of Different Strokes at the time, and in the middle of Hello Larry's run, they moved it to air right after Different Strokes. The show was a complete failure. It was the third failed sitcom attempted by former MASH actor McLean Stevenson. And with every failed sitcom in the 70s after he left MASH, it became more and more embarrassing for him, because he only left because he thought he deserved to be the star of the show, and he wasn't the star of MASH. So he felt he deserved to be the big star, and every time he tried to be the big star, it failed. So this was the most embarrassing of the failures. It was kind of like Frasier in a way. Of course, Frasier didn't exist then, but it was kind of like what Frasier would be, but not as good. It was kind of like WKRP in Cincinnati in some ways. It was kind of like One Day at a Time in a lot of ways. But it was not good. It just wasn't funny. It wasn't well written. The characters weren't very interesting. The whole thing was a mess. So it actually lasted parts of 2 seasons, 38 episodes. Didn't deserve to. Somehow it got renewed. They just weren't accepting it was going to fail because there were high expectations for it. So I played that to just kind of reach back in your memory. That, in fact, the very best thing about the show was the theme song, which is actually pretty good. Pretty catchy theme song there, as I'm sure you noticed. If you want to read more about it, we have a guy, never going to reveal who it is, but there's someone who listens to this show who is an insider in Hollywood, and it is not Vintage One, in case you're thinking it's him. He also works in Hollywood, but it's not him. It's completely separate from Vintage One. In fact, this guy's a little bit older than Vintage One. And he comes to Poker Fraud Alert to post inside information from Hollywood. A lot of times about older stuff from like the 70s and 80s, but sometimes about current stuff too. So you can find a write-up he did this week on the Flying Stupidity subforum about Hello Larry and all the drama surrounding that, and McLean Stevenson himself. Actually pretty interesting stuff. I'm glad he posts here. Here is the agenda, and then we will get going. I actually got banned from X yet again. I got banned in August, and then I got banned again for the same thing in September. What keeps happening to my account, and was I able to resolve this a second time? It was so hard the first time. Did I manage it a second time? You will find out in that first segment. Popular Chinese poker pro and GG ambassador Tony Ren Lin was thrown out of a WSOP Circuit event on day 2 due to a recent online cheating allegation, and that kicked off a whole scandal. I'll tell you about that as our main story this week. Then we will give you a Vegas story about 2 reality show guys who teamed up with Casino.org to break a record about number of casinos visited in 24 hours. Casino.org wanted you to be all excited over this until journalist John Mehaffey exposed that this was all a big fraud. Then we will talk about likely 2028 presidential candidate JB Pritzker, that he declared $1.4 million in gambling winnings in 2024. Was this true, or there's something shady going on? I will let you know which one I think is the case. Las Vegas poker pro Jordan Cristos is in jail for stalking, threatening the WPT's CEO, and threatening a judge for good measure. What's going on with this guy? I will tell you that when we get to this segment. Have you ever heard of debanking, where you are kicked out of a bank, where you cannot bank with them anymore? They do give you your money, but they kick you out and will not offer you their services anymore just because they don't like you, they don't want to do business with you? That's a real thing. It does happen to people, and in fact, it's happened to a number of gamblers, including Daniel Negreanu. Well, Trump issued an executive order in August 2025 that could put an end to this, even though it's not aimed at helping gamblers. I will tell you about that. Maverick Gaming is a casino company owned by poker player Erik Persson. There are 27 casinos under the Maverick Gaming banner, and they have filed for bankruptcy. Emmitt Smith, NFL legend Emmitt Smith, had a restaurant in the Fashion Show Mall, but after a lot of money spent on it, it failed very, very badly, and it owes more in rent than you could ever imagine. Finally, Erik Bergman, who is the founder of an online gambling lead generation firm called Catena Media, was hit for $1.25 million in what should have been a pretty obvious impersonation scam involving MrBeast. MrBeast didn't do anything wrong here, but he was impersonated, and $1.25 million was scammed from this Erik Bergman guy, who was at least good enough to report all this on social media just to let everyone know what happened to him so they could learn from it and not have it happen to them too. So I'll give him credit for that, and I'll tell you about this crazy story. So I'm going to get right into the topics we have here because I've got limited time, got stuff to do in the morning, in the real morning, not the middle of the night morning like we're at right now. So let's just get going. If you want to text me at any time, 775-372-8355. Remember, the show can be found in podcast format on iTunes, TuneIn, iHeartMedia, Spotify, Audible, Amazon Alexa, CastBox, and of course, YouTube. So remember I told you on the last show, not the political show, but the show before that, I told you about the whole saga with me getting banned from X, aka Twitter. Remember I got banned in early August and I was gone from X for most of August. And then I was able to get back. I was able to return despite what was supposed to be a permanent ban through something very lucky that I happen to know someone from decades ago who has a close connection to somebody else who has the ability to restore me there. So I was able to get a human being to take a look at it, and this person reversed my ban, which totally wasn't deserved. It was a bot that banned me. It was not a human that banned me, and I was banned for what was called inauthentic activity, which means you're either botting or spamming or engagement farming, things I never do. I mean, you guys see me on X, and whether you like or dislike what I tweet, I'm sure you can agree that I follow the rules and I don't ever spam or do anything there that would resemble spam. So it was just erroneous. And it got reversed, thankfully, just by that coincidence that I happened to know someone who could help me. Otherwise, there's basically no way back from it, especially these days. Well, I thought I was past all that, and my account was in good standing, and everything was nice, and that was past, and I was very grateful to the person who helped me. But then, I'm very, very frustrating. Seconds after I replied to a tweet from Seth Davies, and this had really nothing to do with him, but seconds after I replied to one of his tweets near the end of September, I got banned again. Yeah. This was so frustrating. I thought I was past all that. It was the exact same thing. It was inauthentic activity. I was banned by the bot. This time I discovered the ban, as I said, within seconds. It really banned me within seconds of completing a reply. Nothing wrong with the reply. I was just talking about limit hold'em with Seth Davies. I mean, very, very mundane stuff. Didn't have any links, didn't have any pictures, nothing that could look spammy at all. But somehow it decided I was engaging in inauthentic activity again and banned me. So I said, oh boy, this is probably going to be permanent. I don't know if the person who helped me last time is going to help me again. Now, the person who got the attention to get me help last time was very happy to help me again. In fact, this person offered to help me again. And I'm like, I feel bad. I feel bad that you're bothering this other person who actually is at Twitter to take time out of their busy work over there to look at my account a second time. I mean, yeah, this is not my fault, but, this isn't that person's responsibility to get my account back running again a second time. The person who helped me at Twitter doesn't know me, so it wasn't someone who's doing a favor for me or anything. I mean, they were, but they were doing a favor for me that was asked of them by somebody who knows me. So it was really a stranger to me who helped me get back on in the first place. And I didn't want to bother that person a second time, but I said, okay, if you can help, I guess, but I just don't know if this is going to do any good. Well, anyway, I got ignored. Again, not by the person I know, but by the person who helped me last time. They just did not answer me. And I was pretty much resigned to being off of X, at least on that account, for good. I figured that the Todd Wittelis account was dead because this time I was not being answered by the person who undid it last time for me. So that was that. So it appeared. But guess what? About 5 days after I was banned, with no notice, with no explanation, with just nothing that would make me understand why it happened, my account was restored. I did not get anything from them telling me that they were reversing it or that it was an error. Nothing. The person who had helped me out of it did never respond to me. I just came back somehow, and I don't know why it happened or how it happened, but I'm not going to question it. It's like Bill Clinton said about gays in the military in the early 90s. Don't ask, don't tell. I guess I kind of am telling, but I don't know how it happened, but I'm thankful it happened. So I am once again back on X under the Todd Wittelis account. And it's been about a month, a little less than that, like maybe 4 weeks since I got banned last time, and I came back after like 5 days. So I guess I've been back for about 3 weeks now. So far, so good. Knock on wood. I did, of course, submit an appeal after my ban, but usually if the appeal gets granted, then they email you and tell you that the appeal has been granted. And there was no such email, nor was there any kind of notification on X that my appeal was granted. I just popped back on there. I did mention in my appeal that it was erroneous, and I mentioned who had unbanned me last time and to talk to them, and they'll verify that this was erroneous. Maybe that's what did it. I don't know. But I'm happy to be back. But, X life is precarious, I have learned. At any moment, I could disappear again for any reason. But I'm there for right now. So I had a frustrating moment, and then the frustrating moment reversed itself. So, okay, great. It's kind of like when you have a problem with your car, and before you take it into the shop, it just fixes itself. Or you get some kind of ailment, and you're pretty sure it's never going to go away, and there's one day it just gets better. You don't know why. It's kind of like that, except the X version of it. Remember, if the Todd Wittelis account ever vanishes again on X, I will be using my backup account, Druff Poker, which I had previously been using just for WSOP chip updates, but that's the one I go back to. That's my backup account in case I get banned, which I did not intend that account to be that way. I didn't think I'd ever get banned, but, times change. And I guess this is the era of me getting banned from X for no reason. By the way, other than the bans, I actually like what they're doing over there. They're trying a lot of different things to stop the spam and to try to identify who's a legitimate account that you can listen to, and they're trying to come up with ways to identify who these foreign engagement farmers are or foreign impersonators. There's a lot of things that are going on that platform that they're trying to address, and I appreciate that. I think they're really headed in a good direction over there. And in general, I like the way it's being run a lot better than the previous regime before Elon. But, the bans aren't very good. They need to fix their ban bot because there's something wrong with it. I even told them that. I said, I'm a good case to study to see what it's doing wrong. Because really, I've done nothing wrong. If I was messing around there, I would admit it. And I would apologize and not do it again. I have nothing to apologize for because I didn't do anything wrong. I did not break any rules. I've been very careful on X to follow every single rule of the system. But whatever. You know how bots and AI can be. It can mess up. That's what happened to me. All right, so enough about me. Let's get to our top story, our main story, and it's an ongoing story. Even though we haven't had this show for a while, this is something that is very recent. It occurred this week, and a new development, in fact, happened in the last 24 hours. So, very recent story, and I'm sure that's what you want to hear. Sometimes you like old stuff, too, if I haven't talked about it, or if it's something kind of timeless that isn't really related to the data I'm reporting it. But this one is something that's good to discuss as it happens, and here it is. And in fact, that's kind of motivated me to turn on this show this morning and get on the record about how I feel about this. GG Poker is the largest online poker site in the world. It has passed Poker Stars quite some time ago. They also presently own the WSOP. Remember, they bought that from Caesars for $250 million. I have a lot of good things to say about the way they went about expanding and how they managed to find success at a time I thought a new online poker site really had no chance, because they popped up in the mid-2010s and just kept growing and growing, and they basically did everything right as far as marketing and as far as operations to keep expanding. And even though there were some operational decisions I didn't like, especially some anti-pro measures that they took, so I don't agree with everything they've done there, but as far as their business decisions, they've done a tremendous job. And they blew right enough money to where they were actually able to buy the WSOP. And that's amazing. That really is amazing. I met the owner/CEO at a party a few years ago. It was actually a party they put on, and I got mysteriously invited at the last minute. I have no idea who pulled that string and why. I did not know about the party till I was invited to it, so I wasn't trying to put out like, hey, I'd like to go or anything. I just got an invitation, and I'm like, okay, I went. I happened to be in Vegas, so I went, and I met near the end of the party the owner of GG Poker. I've talked about that before. He was a nice guy, at least in my interactions with him, and I could tell he enjoyed talking to me. And I can tell when someone's just kind of being polite versus when they actually are enjoying the conversation. And I actually got both there, where at the beginning he was just being polite and pretending to be interested to talk to me. And then when I revealed like how much I knew about the industry, then like very quickly he changed his entire tune, where it went from like just pleasantries to like really wanting to discuss stuff with me. And then he gave me his business card. So yeah, I had a nice interaction with him. I actually even considered at the time, hey, maybe I should email him, see if he has a managerial type position there for me. Not that I absolutely need it or anything, but I thought that'd be fun to have. But there are a number of reasons I didn't want to do that, including my objectivity on this show and on my forum. So I decided not to. And I have to imagine that I don't think GG Poker hates me or anything, but I can't imagine they're thrilled with me because I have put out a number of critical stories about them over time, including about when they had their little super user scandal, which wasn't as big or bad as the one at UB, but they had a super user situation. It wasn't an inside situation, so it wasn't nearly as bad. But I've put out a lot of criticism of them and how they've handled some things, even though I will again concede that business-wise they've done a really good job expanding. But there's been some operational decisions and some unfair decisions I feel they've made over time, and I've always called it out, and I'm sure they don't love that. But, that's what this show's about. That's what this site's about. It's called Poker Fraud Alert for a reason. So I bet if I emailed him at this point, he'd say, this guy, this guy's a pain in our ass. But anyway, GG Poker has a pretty big roster of ambassadors, which is called the GG team. The lead ambassador, the face of the site really, is Daniel Negreanu, and you probably know that. And I believe he owns a piece of it. This is just my guess. I haven't been given this information or anything, but this is my guess, is he was given some piece ownership of it in exchange for being the face of the site. He became the face of the site before they got that large, so it grew along with him. I do believe him being the face of the site did help its growth, so I think it was a mutually beneficial arrangement. He is a very good person to have as a face of the site. In fact, on our last show, I talked about how Vanessa Cade was complaining about this, saying that he gets $1.4 million a month from them, which, maybe it's true. I don't know. I've never heard this figure, but she might be right. But if so, good for him, It grew. It's making a ton of money. He was part of the reason they grew. So, okay, he deserves it, to be honest. Good for him. I'm not going to begrudge someone for making that type of money every month. I would do the same thing in his position. But anyway, this isn't really about Negreanu. It's a little bit about Negreanu, but it's mainly not about him. It's about one of their pros from China who is in some controversy. And you may or may not have heard of this guy. He's more of a recent star of poker, but he's not a household name. But a lot of pros know who he is, and people who follow tournament poker closely probably know who he is. His name is Tony Lin, also known as Ren, R-E-N. And as I said, he's a popular Chinese poker pro, and he's also a GG ambassador. And when I say popular, he's very well liked because he's a friendly guy. Everybody loves playing with him. People like hanging out with him. He's just always pleasant. He's just always a fun guy to have around. He was someone that really, prior to what went on recently, no one had any bad things to say about. It's just someone, you get him at your table, and yeah, he's a good player. You're not thrilled about him from that standpoint, but you're happy to have him there. He's a fun guy to have at your table. He's always very nice, but at the same time, he's not like too nice. He doesn't come off as phony. He just comes off as very genuine and joyful, and people like him. So that kind of complicated the scandal that occurred, because when someone like that gets in some kind of hot water and what they're accused of is bad but not terrible, then you get a lot of different opinions. You have a lot of people trying to make excuses for him, and at the same time, others calling for his head. So let me tell you what happened. And what's weird about this scandal is it's all internal to GG. And what's also strange is they were too harsh on him and too lenient on him at the same time. I've never seen anything like this before. It's a very weird story. But GG Poker seems to do weird things sometimes, and this is definitely one of them. So I will tell you what happened, and then you will understand better. So this all started, at least our awareness of this started, on October 17th, when Tony Lin, a.k.a. Ren Lin, was thrown out of a WSOP Circuit event in Cyprus on day 2 of the event. So he had a chip stack. He's in the middle of this event that had a $5,300 buy-in, and he was just abruptly thrown out as he tried to begin day 2. Well, that was unexpected. I mean, he was seen as a clean player. No one would ever expect that Ren Lin, the nice guy, would get booted out of a tournament. And he didn't appear to be doing anything in that tournament to cause himself to get thrown out. So people wondered at first, did he get ejected from the tournament because he was caught cheating or something? Well, not really. He had not done anything wrong in that tournament. In fact, he hadn't done anything wrong in any other tournament in that Cyprus series. Again, this is a WSOP Circuit event in Cyprus. Instead, he was thrown out of the tournament on day 2 for something that he was accused of having done on GG Poker 4 days prior in an online event. Furthermore, what he was accused of doing didn't actually involve his play. It involved somebody else's play and him being an accomplice in some cheating that went on. So basically, they discovered this and decided on day 2 of the event, they're just going to confiscate his stack and boot him out. I don't know if they gave him a refund or if they just kicked him from the event with no refund. But either way, they took his day 2 stack out of play and he was thrown out of the event and he was banned from GG Poker. This is a GG ambassador. And keep in mind, again, they own WSOP. So it was their event, technically. This is all internal to GG. He's an ambassador of the site. This had to do with something that happened online on a GG Poker tournament. And he was thrown out 4 days later from a WSOP Circuit event. And of course, WSOP is owned by GG. So everything had to do with GG here. So what was he accused of specifically? Well, on October 14th, there was a player who won an event whose name was Real OA. Exactly as it sounds, Real OA. And he was from China. It was an online event. And there was a player at the final table named Buzzcut. And Buzzcut was very upset about something and reported it to GG. Buzzcut found out, and I'll tell you in a second how he found it out. It was kind of strange how he found that out too. He found out that Real OA was in a chat with several poker pros and that he was soliciting advice as he was playing hands at that final table in that GG event. So he would post, okay, here's my stack size, here's the cards I've been dealt, here's the flop, whatever, like what should I do here? Like he's typing in the chat real time what's going on and is soliciting advice from pros who are presumably better than him. One of the pros who was in that chat, it was a private chat room, was Ren Lin. And the one who gave him the most advice was Ren Lin. So Ren Lin was basically guiding Real OA, who was from China just like him, must be a friend of his. He was guiding him of what to do. Whenever Real OA had a strategy question, Ren answered it. And it wasn't just like in general, like, what style should I play? It wasn't something like that. He was like, okay, I have Jack 10 offsuit here. I'm in middle position. I opened and the small blind 3-bet, and I called. I'm just making this up, but I'm giving you an example. And I called, and the flop was 10 high, and the guy fired out at me half the pot. What should I do? Like, it was something like that, where then Ren would give his advice. It wasn't just general advice. It wasn't coaching before the event or on a break. This was like actual hands being told to Ren in this private chat, but not just with Ren. It was with a group of people, and Ren was giving him advice. Well, apparently the advice was pretty good because Real OA ended up winning. And in fact, after he won, he thanked Lin in the chat, quote, for the coaching. So he wasn't just taking the advice and saying, okay, it's nice to have this, but I'll kind of go my own way. He apparently followed the advice closely enough that he felt the need to thank Ren Lin for the coaching after winning. So how did Buzzcut, one of the other players at that final table, how did he find out this was happening? Well, remember, it was a group chat. And what Real OA didn't realize was that Buzzcut was also in that chat. Uh-oh. Not good for Real OA, because one of his opponents is reading this whole thing. Now, I don't think he read it as it was happening. I think when he went back to look at the chat after he was out of the event, Buzzcut's like, oh my God, this whole time Real OA was getting all his advice playing against me and everybody else. He's getting strategy advice real time from Ren Lin. So Buzzcut had these screenshots, and first he confronted Ren Lin about it and said, "What are you doing here? That's not fair. You're helping him cheat. It's supposed to be one player to a hand here. He shouldn't have a group behind him in chat advising him what to do. Why are you doing this? I thought you were an ambassador of this site. What the hell?" Ren, of course, he's not a confrontational guy. So he didn't just say, "F you, too bad." He apologized to Buzzcut, saying, "I'm sorry, I didn't think I was doing anything wrong. Like 90% of pros do this," he said. He was basically saying, "Yeah, everyone does this. I know it looks bad, and I'm sorry that this affected your tournament, and, I didn't think this was wrong." But he did apologize. He wasn't just saying he's going to keep doing it, tough luck. He was like, "Yeah, I get what you're upset about. I'm just telling you that everybody does that these days," is what Ren told him. So Buzzcut wasn't very happy with this conversation. Despite the apology he got, he still felt like he got cheated out of perhaps a higher finishing position, and that real OA maybe would not have won if he wasn't getting this advice from Ren. So Buzzcut took this all to GG. GG, I don't know when they found this out and when they investigated, whatever it was, while Ren was in this circuit event in Cyprus is when they decided, okay, we've got to do something about this. We've got to take action here. So, okay, where's Ren right now? Oh, he's playing one of our events. He's playing a WSOP Circuit event right now. Okay, well, kick him out of it. He's banned. So the news dropped that Ren was banned on day 2 of an event and his stack confiscated over a cheating incident that was alleged to have happened 4 days earlier. The community wasn't very happy with this. The community said, look, if you want to ban him over this, fine, but you shouldn't ban him from an unrelated tournament in the middle. You should let that tournament finish and then ban him. Or you can ban him before he registers. Or you can ban him after he registers but before he takes a hand. And just refund his money and say, "You're banned, sorry, get out." That's all fine, but to ban him in the middle of a tournament unless he actually cheated in that tournament is pretty bad. That was the general consensus on X, though there were some people saying that they're fine with this, that they have no sympathy for him, that he's a cheater, that he helped his fellow countrymen from China cheat, that this probably isn't the first time he's done it, and that they're tired of these cheaters and F him. So, yeah, it's a little bit unfair he gets banned mid-tournament, but tough luck, he deserves it. That was the sentiment some people had. And others were saying, we agree he deserves a ban, but not in the middle of this event. Let him finish this event and then ban him. So that's what was being focused upon at first. Overall, as I said, the reaction was mixed to his ban, but more negative than positive because of the mid-tournament ban. But there came to be more to this whole thing because there's the aftermath. Because he's not just a nobody. He's not just some random. This is a GG ambassador banned in the middle of a WSOP event that GG owns and was accused of helping someone cheat on a GG online event a few days prior. So what was going to become of Ren Lin? Was he going to be fired? Was he going to be permanently banned? What was he going to have to say about this? Because he had a very good reputation prior to this. Like, what was his statement going to be, if any? Well, he did come up with a statement about it the following day. This is on October 19th. He tweeted out a public apology regarding the GG final table incident. "I am Tony Lin. I hereby extend my sincerest apologies to all players affected by the coaching incident during the GG 10300 final table." I'm not sure what 10300 means. "As well as to the platform and the friends who have supported me. I must state unequivocally that I gained no form of profit," and he bolded the no form of profit, "from this incident. I held no stake in any player's entry, received no payment, and derived no benefit whatsoever. My actions were purely an instinctive reaction in an inappropriate setting, one that contradicted the principles of fair competition I have always strived to uphold." Now, let me stop right here. So far, I guess this is fine, but let me tell you something I noticed right away, and other people noticed. This didn't sound like it was him writing it. He doesn't speak the best English. He speaks English, but he doesn't speak the best English. This already was better English than he speaks. Now, it's true, some people write better than they speak because you have a lot more time to do it. But I noticed that this seemed AI-like, especially because AI loves putting the 2 dashes in between words. And this has a lot of that in this statement, including the sentence I just read you. My actions were purely an instinctive reaction in an inappropriate setting, dash, dash, one that contradicted the principles of fair competition I've always strived to uphold. So this is already looking like AI format as far as when AI puts out a statement or any response. You'll probably see this when you interact with AI. He or AI went on to write, on the day of the incident, I was competing in a WSOP event in Cyprus. During a 10-minute break, I clicked a 10-cent meeting link shared by Real OA. Upon joining, I saw he was playing the GG 10300 final table. When he asked for my opinion on a hand, I responded instinctively, offering my personal advice simply out of a desire to help a friend. The entire interaction lasted only a few minutes, after which I left the call and returned to my live tournament. As it was my first time entering such a live session, I failed to recognize it as a rule violation at that moment, mistakenly equating it with post-tournament hand discussions common in our chat groups. Okay, let me stop again here. I don't believe that. There has been so much talk over the years about people ghosting and taking over accounts during tournaments. I mean, that whole Bryn Kenny scandal had to do with that, where Bryn Kenny's horses would play an event, and then he was accused of taking over when he was when his horses would get far, or he actually had a hierarchy of horses where a lower hierarchy horse gets far in a tournament and then hands it off to somebody who's better than him to take over the later stages. And then maybe that person will hand it off to Bryn personally at some point. Like we discussed this before. I'm sure that Ren is aware of all these discussions about people helping others or outright taking over for them during online play. Now, he's not accused of taking over for Real OA, but he is accused of giving help, and I don't believe it was just one hand. I believe it was more than one hand, because I don't think Buzzcut would have made a huge deal about this if it was just one hand. I have a feeling it's a lot more than that, but for whatever reason, he's claiming that he was asked for his opinion, quote, on a hand, and then the interaction, quote, only lasted a few minutes. So I don't believe he failed to recognize it was a violation. That's just what he has to say to sound good. He doesn't want to say, oh yeah, I knew this was cheating, but I wanted to help my friend win anyway. He's not going to say that, so he's going to play dumb and say, oh, I didn't know that's a rule violation. I had no idea. I had no idea that helping someone with advice on hands taking place at a live final table, that's wrong, that's considered cheating in poker. Oh my God, I have 16 million in Hendon Mob caches, but I had no idea that doing this is cheating. Like anybody who's an experienced poker pro knows it's cheating. So I don't believe for a second that he didn't know it was wrong. He just chose to do it anyway because, as he said, Real OA is his friend. He went on to write, later I learned in our poker group that Real OA had won the event. He had sent a $100 red packet in our 500-member group, tagged me, and thanked for the advice. I don't know what the red packet is, but it doesn't really matter. I think it's like some kind of gift. I did not accept the red packet. It was only when another player, YL3I, posted about his third place finish that I realized Buzzcut was his in-game ID, and I congratulated him accordingly. So basically he's saying that he was offered $100 for helping, like it was sent to him, and he just declined it. And then also after that, he realized that the third place finisher in that event, Buzzcut, was in that chat under the name YL3I. And he felt stupid for having helped Real OA right in front of another guy right in that final table. Now, I do believe he didn't know that Buzzcut was in there, that he was doing this in front of another competitor there. Obviously, he wouldn't have done that then, so I believe that part. He went on to write, after my own tournament ended, I reflected deeply. If I were playing online and discovered my opponent had a friend offering advice, wouldn't that be cheating? The moment I grasped the severity of the situation, I immediately contacted Buzzcut to apologize and explain the circumstances. I am grateful to have since received his understanding. Do you think that he went and reflected deeply after this? Like, after he discovered Buzzcut was there too? That he's like, oh man, I did something very unethical. What if this was done to me by somebody else? I would feel really mad about this. I just did something wrong and I didn't realize when I was doing it that I helped someone win a tournament and it's unfair to everybody else in there, including this guy who was there in the chat. Oh, okay. I'm going to go to Buzzcut right now and tell him what I just realized. Like, I don't believe that's the way it went down. And in fact, Buzzcut said that that's not the way it went down. He said that he had a conversation with Ren and that Ren was apologetic, but also said, look, everyone does it. So that's not something, that doesn't sound like someone who went through deep reflection. He continued, the founding principle of my poker community has always been clear. Quote, we do not tolerate poor conduct, soft play, or any form of cheating. Any player found engaging in such behavior will be removed immediately. Now, what he means is that the founding principle of GG is this. To me, soft play or cheating is no different from theft. It is a form of wrongdoing. Buzzcut has been a member of this group and knows my character well. He shared that, had this incident not occurred, his perception of me would have remained one of respect and goodwill. Well, sure. I mean, yeah, Buzzcut didn't see you do anything wrong prior to this. So, of course, he would have a positive opinion of you until this happened. This happens all the time where someone you formerly think highly of does something wrong and screws you over, and then you say, you know what? This person's a dick, or this person's dishonest. I misjudged them. They did something very unethical. Like that's a weird thing to say, that had this not happened, he would have liked him. Well, sure. A lot of people can say that. He writes, although poker, and again with a dash dash, although poker dash dash, particularly in Asia and specifically in China, is not yet widely accepted by the public, I believe that as a player of this generation and the admin of this community, I have both the responsibility and the confidence to set a positive example. It has been my mission over the past decade to help people beyond the poker world understand that Texas Hold'em is not a game where gamblers rely solely on luck to profit. Rather, it is a true test of skill and integrity, a competitive sport worthy of honorable participants. Okay, let me stop here. How many poker pros do you think refer to No Limit Hold'em as, quote, Texas Hold'em? How many? My guess would be
0.0.
You just don't call it Texas Hold'em if you're a poker pro. You just call it Hold'em, No Limit Hold'em, NL Hold'em. You can just call it poker. You wouldn't call it Texas Hold'em. I haven't used the term Texas Hold'em in a very long time. It's just too formal. It's not the way we refer to the game. It's kind of like when you're talking to someone online who purports to be from somewhere like New York and they say, I am from New York, USA. Well, you know that person's not really from New York if they say that. You know it's a foreign scammer because nobody actually from New York City would say, I'm from New York, USA. You wouldn't even say New York. You just say, I'm from New York or I'm from New York City. But foreign scammers don't understand that. So to them, it seems natural to say, oh, I'm from New York, USA. So same thing here. He would not write about, quote, Texas Hold'em if these were his words. This really sounds like AI. He went on to write, having experienced many difficult periods in my own life, I understand deeply what it means to struggle. That is why when I see friends in need, I often feel an unconscious urge to assist. It was that very mindset, having been rained on, I always want to hold an umbrella for others. That led me to commit this serious error and cross a clear competitive boundary. Oh my gosh. Having been rained on, I always want to hold the umbrella for others? I mean, you've got to be kidding me here. Again, it seems like AI. Can you really picture him writing that? And what is he talking about? That he understands what it means to struggle. What were his struggles? I haven't heard about some kind of tragic thing he overcame to be a successful poker pro. It's not like he's renowned from having risen through incredibly difficult circumstances and now he's always feeling the need to help people. He's not even known for helping everybody. He's just known for being friendly. So he just couldn't help being helpful, basically. He couldn't resist. Real OA needed advice about a hand, and he just thinks, well, I've been rained on so much of my life, it's time to hold this umbrella over real OA and tell him how to play this hand. Come on. Come on now. He wrote, although my intentions were not self-serving, a mistake was made and I take full responsibility. Following communication with the relevant parties, Real OA has returned the majority of the prize money last night, and I will cover the remaining portion. The total amount has been submitted to the platform for fair distribution. I'll get to that in a second. As a platform, I am deeply ashamed and remorseful for failing to live up to the standards I advocate. I am prepared to accept all penalties and will make every effort to compensate the players affected in this event. I thought he already did that. He just described that he basically helped Real OA return the entire prize. So that's the compensation, right? I sincerely hope this incident serves as a cautionary example, and I urge everyone to join me in upholding a safe and fair competitive environment for poker, both online and offline. Then he signs it, Tony Lynn, 10/19/2025. So, okay. Looks like an AI-generated apology. I did run this through an AI detector, and one of them said that it was likely 44% created by AI and 56% written by humans. And these are not probabilities I'm giving you. It was saying that about 44% was actually written by an AI and the rest was not. But that's just its guess. I think there's a good chance that most of it was written by AI. Unfortunately, this looks more like a case where someone got caught and they decided to make it right. Only at that point, because they had more to lose by not making it right. Remember, Ren Lin is one of the best known and most popular Chinese players these days, and he's one of GG Poker's ambassadors. So he can't just keep quiet or say, mind your own business or hope it goes away. He's got to address this. The scandal was growing and growing on X, and he had to say something. And, of course, he couldn't be defiant or flippant. He had to be very apologetic and, of course, even made it right financially to where he could try to chalk it up to just a mistake because he's just too helpful of a guy and he's learned and he won't do this ever again and everything's been made right, and he's even willing to take any penalties given to him without fighting it. That's what he put out there. And he got a mixed reaction from it. Some people said, this is great. We wish more cheaters did this. Take full responsibility, make it right financially, promise never to do it again, not make excuses, say they'll accept whatever penalties given to them. So some people were saying, this is great. This is what we need to see every time someone gets caught doing something like this. And others were saying, come on, this is AI-generated bullshit to try to make everybody forgive him and to not have this incident ruin his reputation. So very mixed reactions here, probably about half and half, positive, negative, to this apology he posted. Daniel Negreanu, who of course is biased in this situation because he is the face of GG Poker, he was defending Ren Lin and basically said that while he admits this is wrong, Ren is a nice guy and that everybody should give him another chance, is basically what Negreanu was saying in his statement about it, which a lot of people didn't like. A lot of people gave him a hard time. Negreanu wrote regarding that apology that Ren posted, this all rings very true to me, knowing Ren for several years and his character in regards to poker and his passion for it. He made a mistake trying to help a friend he was excited for, and I think this apology owns it appropriately. He accepts his consequences responsibly, in my opinion. Some people just felt that Negreanu was trying to defend someone who is associated with his own site. I don't really care so much what Negreanu is going to say about it. And of course, he's going to say something in defense of one of their own pros. Maybe he even has a friendship with this guy, so, whatever. I wasn't expecting a neutral statement out of him. And that's just the way it goes when someone has a bias and they're asked about a situation. But he's not the one making the decision here, so it doesn't really matter that much. GG's response came about 18 hours ago. It was posted on the morning of October 21st. They wrote, a breach of integrity occurred during the GG Millions final table on October 14th. We've completed our investigation and taken decisive action. Read the full statement. And here is the full statement that they linked. Official statement, GG Poker's response to GG Millions tournament integrity breach. What happened? During the GG Millions final table on October 14th, 2025, player Real OA actively solicited unauthorized real-time strategic advice from multiple individuals. Among those he contacted was professional player Ren Tony Lin, who responded to Real OA's requests by providing coaching. Real OA intentionally sought advice to gain an advantage over his opponent in violations of the rules of GG Poker. Lin, who acted as a coach, has acknowledged his mistake and demonstrated accountability for his role in this incident. Statement from Ren Tony Lin. Following the incident, Ren Tony Lin was disqualified from the WSOP Super Circuit Cyprus main event and issued the following statement, and that's the one I read you, so I'm not going to read it again. Actions taken. Real OA permanently banned from GG Poker, WSOP, and all partner platforms. So Real OA, whoever that is, they don't name him as far as what his real identity is, but whoever that is supposedly permanently banned from GG Poker, WSOP, and all partner platforms. He is a goner. As far as Ren Tony Lin, he's indefinitely suspended from GG Poker, WSOP, and all partner platforms. Indefinitely suspended is different than banned. Real OA got banned. Ren got indefinitely suspended. Restitution. GG Poker reclaimed all of the funds remaining in Real OA's account, $250,523. While $96,380 short, Lin voluntarily contributed the remaining amount from personal funds to cover their shortfall, meaning that Real OA had actually won about $347,000, but only had $250K left. I guess he cashed out. This left over $96K that was still short to everybody else that was in that tournament from second place on down to the bubble, presumably. They were just going to move everybody up one spot. Since it was $96K short, they're saying that Ren Lin gave that $96K out of his own money so they could make it right for everybody. Then they wrote, our message to the poker community. This case demonstrates three principles. We will prevent and detect violations. Our monitoring system... No, that's not what happened. Why would he even say that? Buzzcut occurred. If Buzzcut was not in that, the second principle, any result from the GG Poker investigation will extend across... When integrity is compromised, we ensure that financial restitution is made to those affected. Real-time assistance through private communication channels remains challenging to prevent, but GG Poker's detection and investigation capabilities will continuously improve. Competitive poker depends on trust and equal conditions. We will not allow anyone to undermine that foundation. Well, again, that's not really what happened here, though. I mean, yes, it is very hard to tell when someone's getting advice over a chat. So I'm not blaming them for not catching it, but don't brag about how good your systems are to catch this when you didn't catch it. And then they put a case summary, which I won't bother to read because it's basically what I just told you. So that is a weird statement. The weirdest part is the indefinite suspension thing. What does that mean? Real OA just got outright banned, and supposedly it's permanent. He's never coming back. So why is Ren getting an indefinite suspension, and what does that mean? And what is missing from this statement? There's something very big that's missing from this statement, just completely missing. Can you figure it out? Do you know what it might be? Let's think about this. They covered the restitution, which is fine. They covered what they did to Real OA, which is fine. They covered the exact incident and why it's against the rules. Like, all that's fine. But what didn't they cover? They did not cover what is happening to Ren Lin's ambassadorship on GG Poker. Because he's not just a regular user on GG Poker. He's not just a regular poker pro. He was a member of the GG team. So what happens to that? Is he fired? Is he not fired? What's going on with his ambassadorship? Because there's a big difference between just banning a player and banning or firing an ambassador. They don't even mention anything about that. He mentions it somewhat in his statement about how he's an ambassador there, but they don't mention what they're going to do about his ambassadorship. And that was not an accident. They didn't just overlook it. They just didn't say it because they don't want to address it. And that's where the indefinite suspension comes in. Indefinite just basically means however long we want. So it could be forever, It could be years. It could be 1 year. It could be months. It could be weeks. It could be days. It could be anything. Just whenever they're done, that's when the indefinite suspension is over. It just basically means a suspension of which we have not prescribed a time. So they can just put him back at any point. So it leaves the door to be open for an unsuspension at any time that they want. And that goes along with the ambassadorship. Now, is he still listed as a GG Poker ambassador on their webpage? No, they took that off. He is gone from the Team GG page. But they did not address at all that he's been fired. And that's because he hasn't been fired. And in fact, I think it's very likely that he is going to come back. I also think it's extremely likely that he will be unsuspended before the 2026 WSOP, which begins in late May. I do not see them going into the 2026 WSOP without him on the roster. Right now, yeah, they have circuit events and they have that Bahamas event coming up. They have things like that where, yeah, they'd like him to be there, but the important thing is for him to be at the Summer World Series. And that's 7 months away, so they've got plenty of time to leave him suspended and then to quietly put him back and say, okay, he's apologized, he's made it right, he's done his time, it was a one-time thing, we're giving him another shot. Now, if he's caught in some kind of other scandal by then they just could never unsuspend him, or they could completely ban him at that point. But I'm guessing he won't be. I'm guessing he'll be careful, and then they will put him back. So that's probably what they told him. Hey, we will bring you back before the WSOP, but in the meantime, keep your nose clean. Don't mess up or we have to get rid of you. The statement to him privately was probably that. So this looks harsh because this looks like he's actually banned from the WSOP. They even made it very clear that he is banned, or suspended at least, from GG Poker, WSOP, and anything else they're involved with. And people are like, wow, that's too harsh, man. That is just too stiff of a punishment for what he did here. Banning him from the entire WSOP? He's gone from the World Series of Poker? And that's kind of what Patrick Leonard said. Patrick Leonard wrote, Ren will be sorely missed from WSOP events. If you polled 200 highest volume players, I'd imagine he's top 3 most popular players. He's the perfect ambassador. Contributing the money also shows his remorse. This case only gets found out if they post it themselves. He's talking about GG Poker. Good job with quick investigation and being firm and strong. Still feel kind of sad and off about it. Well, people didn't like the statement at all, calling him the perfect ambassador. Yeah, how can you be a perfect ambassador if you're embroiled in a cheating scandal? I don't care how nice and personable you are. If you get involved in a cheating scandal, you're not the perfect ambassador anymore. That's the first thing, and people kept pointing that out to Patrick Leonard. Also, talking about how he is going to be missed from WSOP events. How does he know this? This is 7 months from now, and he is not banned, he's just suspended. So I don't know if Patrick Leonard just saying that to make this look like Ren's really facing the music, or if he really does believe that Ren won't be back at the WSOP. But I would be shocked if he's not back at the WSOP. I think this is mostly performative on the part of GG Poker. I think they still like Ren Lin. They don't want to part ways with him. And they have to show that they are taking this seriously while at the same time leaving a way for them to restore everything with him and have him continue to represent them, especially because he's very popular in the Chinese market as well. So I think they believe they found the perfect solution. They banned the no-name Chinese guy, this real OA, who asked for help during the final table. They don't really care about getting rid of him. Then they suspended Ren, so it appears that he's being punished for this, and he's banned for the WSOP, so it looks like it's really harsh. But this is not a huge punishment unless he misses the summer series, which, as I said, I'm pretty sure he won't. In fact, if this dies down fast enough, which it might, these things die pretty fast. If this dies down fast enough, I could even see them unbanning him in time for the December 2025 Bahamas event. I'm guessing they'll leave him out of that. It's a little bit too soon. But I wouldn't even be shocked if he got unbanned by that point. But maybe they'll make him miss that, and maybe they'll leave the ban until near the 2026 World Series of Poker, and they'll say, hey, look, he's been banned for 7 months. He hasn't done anything wrong during that time. We believe this is a one-time transgression, and we're going to give him one more shot. Watch, that's going to happen. Maybe it'll be May, maybe it'll be earlier than May, but there's no chance. I think actually almost no chance. I shouldn't say actual zero, but there's almost no chance that he will still be suspended or banned from GG when the World Series comes around, unless something else is found out. If it's found out that he's involved in a lot of cheating, then they may have no choice. But short of that, he will be back. And that's why they structured it this way, and that's why they did not even mention anything about his ambassadorship. Now, I will say that there is some debate whether really much should happen to him at all for this, and whether this was too harsh. Regarding how nice he is and how pleasant he is to be around, that doesn't really matter. Whether he's a confrontational asshole or a jovial, lighthearted guy is immaterial here. And I know he's the latter. He's not an asshole. But whether he is or not doesn't matter. We're not discussing his personality. We're not discussing if he'd be a fun guy to go have a beer with. The question is, what kind of penalty should he get for being complicit in this type of cheating? And that's not obvious. It's simple to say, okay, he's caught in a cheating scandal, ban him, tar and feather him, we don't want to see him again. It's easy to say that, but it's not quite so simple, because there are scales of severity and frequency when it comes to cheating. So someone like Ali Imsrovic was known to have done this a lot, a whole lot. So that's why nobody had any sympathy for him, and he was known as a habitual cheater who people wanted to see the harshest consequences against. Same with his buddy Jake Schindler. Bryn Kenny, another one that a lot of people felt deserved zero sympathy and zero leeway. But with Ren, it's not quite the same thing. So I'll give you the reasons why people were claiming that we should go light on Ren and why others were saying that they should throw the book at him. The reasons to go light: number one, this is the first known instance of him being involved in any kind of cheating scandal. Number two, he didn't cheat himself. He rather provided real-time advice to a friend of his, but he was not cheating while playing. Number three, many others are not banned from either GG or World Series of Poker who've done much worse things. And number four, he apologized and contributed almost $100K of his own money to make it right for those affected. But the reasons some people feel that they should throw the book at him: number one, he's an experienced pro who knew what he was doing when he was helping this friend of his cheat. Number two, he did it on GG Poker, a site he represents as an ambassador. Number three, he only offered to make it right after being shamed on X. When Buzzcut first confronted him, he just apologized but dismissed it as no big deal. And number four, it was only caught because one of the victims happened to be in the same chat, unbeknownst to him. This is unlikely. It's the only time he's ever done it. It's just the only time he's been caught. So what is my opinion? Well, this definitely is not as serious as Jake and Ali or Bryn Kenny. And this also is not as bad as being caught using real-time assistance, because it appears he was more of a human real-time assistance for a friend rather than using real-time assistance himself. If he was caught using GTO Wizard while he plays the online tournaments there, that's much worse than what he did here, where he's giving a friend advice. This does seem more like an occasional unethical action. I don't think this is the first time he's done it, but I don't think this was a sophisticated operation where he's constantly coaching a big group of people who make final tables. I do think he was just kind of helping a friend, but I don't think this is the only time it's happened. However, at the same time, for a GG Poker ambassador to do this on GG Poker is really bad. He is held to a higher standard being an ambassador. So when you're an ambassador and you're helping players at the final table against other people there, that's pretty bad. You had an ambassador on the site helping someone cheat. So even though him being the advice giver is not as bad as being the one seeking the advice, he still knew it was cheating, even though he claims he didn't. And he just didn't care. And that's pretty bad as an ambassador of the site. GG Poker should definitely fire him as an ambassador. Firing and banning are two different things. They can fire him as an ambassador and say, okay, look, you're suspended, we might let you back on the site at some point, but you're done as far as being an ambassador. But to not fire him over this is pretty bad. Definitely he should be fired. An ambassador should not be doing things like this. A ban from the site? Yeah, I think that's appropriate here too. Not as obvious as the firing, but a ban, yeah, I think so. They should not have pulled him out mid-tournament. They should have let him finish that tournament at minimum. And I do think he should be able to continue playing WSOP and other, quote, partner events, unless it turns out he's involved with something much worse. But if it's just this or this plus a few other incidents very similar to it, then I'd say let him still play WSOP, just don't let him keep playing on GG, and definitely fire him as an ambassador. If I were the GG Poker owner, that is what I would do here. I do think it's pretty crazy that he stays on as an ambassador after this, but that looks like is what's going to happen. They're just not saying it right now. Now, we have a difference of opinion from a forum poster named Reform Dorm. Reform Dorm said, I think Ren definitely will be banned this upcoming WSOP. No way GG can allow him to play the series in 2026 and still have any credibility left at all. My guess is, and I think GG Poker already told Ren this on the down low, that he will not be allowed to play the 2026 WSOP, but as long as there's no more controversy with him, they will allow him to start playing the WSOP in 2027. See, I don't agree. If the WSOP was coming next month, I would agree. But because it's 7 months, that's a long time. And there's going to be a lot of controversies and scandals in poker in between. And this is not a super major scandal. So we get 7 months down the road and they say, look, this is the only thing he's ever done wrong. And he's made it right and he's apologized and he's been banned from everything for 7 months. So we're going to let him back now. That's what I think. I think because it's 7 months away, they will let him back. And that's why they're saying indefinite suspension. I think if the plan was to leave him suspended for more than 18 months, then they would say so. They would say he's suspended for at least a year, maybe more. Something like that to make it look really harsh. Indefinite can mean anything, and I really think they're going to put him back before the World Series. They just don't want to say it, nor do they want to say something like, well, he's banned for 7 months, because people will look at the calendar and say, okay, well, we see what you're doing here. So if they just say indefinite, then they can ease him in before the World Series. Maybe they won't make it so obvious. Maybe they won't do it like in late May. Maybe they'll do it in late April and say, oh, what? The World Series is coming next month? Oh, we didn't even think of that. We just decided 6 months is enough. Like, I could see that too. But I guess we will see Reform Dorm, who is correct with their prediction here. So, this is not the most egregious scandal. There's been much worse. This is just what people are talking about now. The most interesting thing to me is that it was a GG ambassador who did it, and then also that they removed him from the middle of the event, which is so weird because that was too harsh. Like, for what he did, I don't think he should be removed in the middle of an event. To remove someone in the middle of an event when they have a stack, either they should have been caught cheating in that event or in another event in that same series. So if they found out that the circuit event he played before that one, in the same Cyprus series, that he cheated, but hadn't necessarily cheated in this one, I could see them pulling him out. But to pull him out over an online matter from 4 days prior, where he was giving someone advice at a final table, that's not justification to pull him out in the middle. Just let him finish it, and then ban him after that. And the funny thing is, if they did that, no one would have said, oh, you should have pulled him out in the middle. Like, no one would have said that. Nor would they have to even acknowledge that they had made the decision while he was still in the tournament. Like, just let it play out and then say, okay, going forward, Ren Lin is suspended from the site and from the WSOP. And that takes out the whole controversy of banning him in the middle of the event, which is weird. Now, it's possible they did that on purpose to make it look like that they're coming down very hard on cheaters. So this whole thing could be performative. They could have banned him on purpose. They could have said to him, hey, we have to ban you here, so just accept it and post an apology, and we'll establish a path for you to come back. But this is step one, is banning you in the middle of this event, so we can look like we really mean business. It could be something like that. It may not have been haphazard at all. It may have really just been, okay, we're going to look like we're really coming down on him. It's very strange that they would be so harsh to take him out in the middle of a tournament, but also not fire him as an ambassador. Like, if it's enough to kick him out of a tournament on day 2, why would they keep him as an ambassador and not fire him? It's so weird. It's not like they found out later that he didn't do what he was being accused of, or he did something but not as bad as the allegations. Basically, they investigated and found out that everything accused of him was true. There wasn't one thing that he denied aside from knowing that it was wrong. But everything he was alleged to have done, he admitted. So why would you ever ban him mid-tournament but not fire him? So strange. But I think it's symbolic. I think the whole thing's symbolic. I think they don't want to cut ties with him. I think they believe that he's good for marketing, especially to the Chinese market, and they don't want to lose him. Maybe they don't want to lose him to a competing site like PokerStars. So we will see if I'm right about this, but I bet he will be unbanned sometime in the spring of 2026. That is my prediction. Now we're going to talk about something else that involves dishonesty, but not about poker. This is a Vegas story, and it's something that I got a little bit involved with myself as kind of a commentator, and I was definitely following it very closely, and I found it pretty interesting. So I'm sure that all of you are familiar with the Guinness Book of World Records. It's something that has lost prominence in recent decades. It was a very big deal when I was a kid in the 70s and 80s. It was something that was just so cool. You'd open up the book and read about all these different records, some of which you were surprised people could achieve. And of course, this was in the age before the internet, so you couldn't just go look these things up. It was in book form. Once the internet became prominent, and once YouTube and Facebook and Twitter and all these other forms of social media became a major part of the internet, then something like the Guinness Book of World Records is not that exciting because, I mean, who really cares? It's just a book holding records. You could have a website that does the same thing. Or you could just go on YouTube and find people setting records of all kinds of strange stuff. You don't need it all in one book. So this is really something that's not relevant to young people. I bet if you ask the average teenager, he has no idea what the Guinness Book of World Records is. I know my son did not know what it was when I asked him. This is something that's more nostalgic, especially to those who are Generation X or older. But it still exists, and people still try to get in the Guinness Book of World Records. In 2017, two guys, I don't remember their names, but two guys attempted to set the record for most casinos visited in a 24-hour period. And they did successfully set the record. They visited 74 casinos in that 24-hour period. Again, this is in 2017. And you can't just set foot in the casino and count it as a visit. They have all these strict rules at the Guinness Book of World Records regarding what is considered a casino visit. And one of the things you had to do was play at least one hand at a live table game like blackjack and get it signed off by the dealer or the pit boss that you were there and that you played. And then there's all these rules regarding transportation, which I'll get into shortly. So again, it's not just setting foot in the casino, and also there were rules in place regarding what is a casino. So the local grocery store that has a few video poker machines in there, that's not a casino. So in 2017, two guys went around and followed all the rules and visited 74 casinos in the way that Guinness calls it a visit. Well, in 2023, the husband and wife journalist team, John and Catena Media, who I've talked about before on the show, decided that they were going to try to beat this record. I like John and Catena. I have met them. They're very nice and good and honest people. And they just thought it would be fun, I think it was on their anniversary, to break this record. And John writes all about casinos. He has a website called Vegas Advantage, and he writes a lot of different stories about casinos and what games you find there and just different things that are interesting for the Vegas visitor regarding the casinos and what you can find there. And Catena writes for it as well. So they decided, hey, we're going to try to set this record. We're going to try to beat 74. So they ended up visiting 93 casinos, but they were not aware of all the rules involved with what was considered a casino visit. So when they went to these 93 casinos in one day, 24-hour period, and they contacted Guinness, they were told, sorry, we can't certify this record. We're not going to call you the record holders because you did some things that are against our rules. So while, in your opinion, these may be 93 casino visits, you didn't do everything that we require. So yours doesn't count. And they were fine with it. The rules are the rules. And they didn't know beforehand what those rules were. So they just tried to visit as many as possible and then learned later that certain criteria had to exist to have it called a casino, and there have to be live table games running at the time, and you have to get this signed off. And the transportation method they used, I think, wasn't something that Guinness allows. So, okay, they felt they set their own record. Circa even gave them a little cardboard plaque showing they did it, and they took a picture there. And, they published their own article about their little adventure. And as far as they were concerned, they were the record holders, but they knew they were not the official record holders. And they were fine with this. They were not bitter or angry about this. They just thought, okay, we didn't check the rules beforehand, and that's our fault. So we'll just call ourselves the record holders in our opinion, but we know we're not official. And I remember this. This was 2 years ago, as I said. Well, then some guy, I don't know who it is, but some guy decided he's going to try to beat their 93. That he's going to try, again, not following Guinness rules, but just try to visit as many as possible in 24 hours and not worry about Guinness's rules. And he did. He beat their 93 casinos. I don't know how many he did, but he did beat their number. And he posted about it, and he let them know. And John and Christina had a very good attitude about it. They were like, oh, you stole our thunder, you stole our idea. Like, they were not mad about it. In fact, they went and celebrated with this guy after he had done so. Because, it's not an official record. So they thought it was cool that someone set out to beat them and managed to. Well, casino.org, which up until now I had a lot of respect for. They have a lot of interesting casino stories on there. They have 2 writers on there in particular who put out good stuff that you won't find anywhere else, Vital Vegas and Corey Levitan. And in fact, I used to read Corey's articles like 30 years ago in a local paper of where I lived at the time that weren't even about gambling. So it's funny to see him pop up again. But between those 2 guys and some other guest writers they were putting out a lot of good and interesting stuff on casino.org. And sometimes I'll read things on there and say, hey, that's a pretty cool story. And then I'll tell you guys on this show about things I learned from there. So casino.org, I really have never had a bad word for them. But I really don't like what they did here. And their whole involvement in this record, which I'm about to tell you about, was very, very shady. So they decided that they were going to have a promotion where they were going to have 2 guys that they recruited who were like reality TV stars to try to break the Guinness record, the 2017 Guinness record for most casinos visited in 24 hours. And they put this whole thing together. They even made shirts for these guys, casino.org shirts to wear as they do it. And they embedded a reporter with them as they went on to break this record. And they had a whole ceremony planned if they successfully did so. They had a website that tracks these guys. And they even had a contest involving it, where people who were watching this whole effort could enter this contest and win something. So they really made a big deal about the whole thing. They set this whole thing up. They weren't just following these guys doing it. They actually recruited them to do it. The 2 guys in question are named Garrett Smith and Joel Strasser. Now, have you heard of Garrett Smith or Joel Strasser in the gambling community? I bet not, because they are not really gamblers. They are reality show guys. They had appeared on the TV show The Amazing Race. They also have set other Guinness records in the past, such as most chopsticks that fit into a beard at once. I'm not even kidding. Like, one of these guys has a really long beard and actually set a record for the most chopsticks that can be in a beard. Like, why is that even a record? Why not just have records of the most anything in a beard? The most crumbs in a beard, the most toothpicks in a beard, the most pencils in a beard. Like, you can come up with anything. Why most chopsticks? It's such a weird record. But I heard Guinness has been doing this. They've just been adding a lot of stupid records just to pad the different things they have there. So these guys have set Guinness records before. Maybe that's what got Casino.org's attention. And they were actually paid to come to Vegas, because they're not from Vegas. They were paid to come to Vegas and to try to break this record wearing Casino.org shirts with a Casino.org reporter following them as they do it. And this was highly promoted. Vital Vegas, in fact, was one of the people who was promoting this for Casino.org. He is a freelance writer who writes for them sometimes, as I mentioned. So what's my problem with this? Like, yeah, it's a little bit cheesy, the whole effort that they're putting together, recruiting guys to try to do this and paying them and having them wear these stupid shirts. Like, it's one thing to report this is going on or embed the reporter with them, but to actually set this whole thing up and build a promotion around it's kind of dumb. But okay, maybe thought this would be a fun thing for the public to watch. So by itself, it's not terrible, but then it really went off the rails. So as you might imagine, John Mehaffey and his wife Christina were rather interested in this because they tried to break the record themselves back in 2023, only to be told by Guinness, sorry, we don't count your record because you didn't follow our rules. So, of course, they were very curious if these guys were going to follow the rules, and if they did, how many casinos they would end up visiting. They didn't really say much or anything at the time this was going on, but afterwards, John had a lot to say about it, and that sparked a big controversy. It was announced by Vital Vegas on September 26th that these guys did break the record. Vital Vegas tweeted, Garrett Smith and Joel Strasser officially hold the Guinness World Record for most casinos visited in 24 hours, an incredible 115 casinos. Wow, that's a pretty big difference between the previous record of 74 and the new record. That's 41 casinos more. Did they really visit 41 more casinos than the guy who did this back in 2017? And how? How did they do it? Following all the rules that Guinness puts down for having to call a visit a casino visit. Well, John Mehaffey really wondered this because he knows a lot more about licensed casinos and what they offer in the Vegas area than the rest of us do. So John responded on the same day, this is nonsense. Even if electronic table games are permitted, we estimate that there's only 71 to 73 casino licenses with them in the Las Vegas Valley market. Even allowing for Guinness to bend the table game rules to allow electronic table games, they couldn't get within 40 of this number. I asked, are they going to list the 115 casinos? It would be interesting to see what shenanigans they pulled. Sad that Guinness was so gullible here, because I wanted to see, okay, if they claim they went to 115 casinos and John's saying that only 73 or so are licensed to run live table games, and even if you include ones with the electronic table games, that it still is nowhere near 115. Like, I want to see this list. I want to see what they really visited so we can scrutinize it. So John then pointed out that they made no social media posts while out. He wrote, I suspect they played video blackjack on slots and counted it, even though their own content and Guinness World Records say no slots. Guinness World Record rules also say no electronic table games. Maybe they counted dual licenses twice, meaning like they go to a property that has two different licenses and claimed it was two casinos. Nobody knows. Also, nearly 6 hours later, meaning later after the time was up, their counter says they only did 80. And then he posted a screenshot. Well, that's interesting too. So this screenshot, which is authentic, by the way, the screenshot that was of their own tracker on Casino.org, showed that they covered 129.45 miles and visited 80 casinos, and it says time left 000000. So how did they go from 80 to 115 when the time was up. How'd they get this extra 35? Now, what are these rules? Let me go over that before we get to the rest of this, because Vital Vegas was none too pleased that Mr. Mehaffey was calling out this whole effort as bullshit, which it was. So what were these rules? Well, the rules for being a casino visit, according to Guinness, was that you have to play a live table game, like blackjack or any other kind of table game. The dealer has to sign off the transaction in a logbook, and electronic table games, like those blackjack machines. I don't mean the ones that are embedded in video poker or slot machines. I mean the ones that are just for blackjack, that this does not count according to Guinness Book of World Records, and John even verified this by going to their current page. And that furthermore, transportation between the casinos, you're not allowed to use taxis, ride shares, self-driving vehicles, or hired cars, nor can you use e-bikes. And guess what these guys used? E-bikes. So that wasn't allowed either. I think the reason for this rule, and it's dumb, but I think the reason for this rule is they want you to either walk or drive. I'm not 100% sure you can drive, but either walk or use a vehicle that's powered by your own body, like a bicycle, or maybe drive, but they don't want to make it too easy to jump between casinos, like just taking Uber between them. But you are allowed to take scheduled public transportation like buses, trains, and monorails. So basically they're saying that they don't want something that makes it too easy for you to, on demand, jump between casinos. So that's in the rules too. They used e-bikes. That's already a big problem as well. But the bigger problem is that you have to play live table games, and John did not know of more than 73 casinos that could spread live table games, and there were only a few that could even spread the electronic version of them in addition to those 73. So there were a few that didn't have any actual live table games but had electronic table games, but there were definitely not like 40 more than that. So the casinos that spread either live table games, electronic table games, or both, there were not more than 70-something of those in the Vegas area. So he couldn't understand how they went to 115. That was a very good point. And they would not disclose which casinos they went to, which is very shady. But anyway, here's the discussion back and forth between him and Vital Vegas. Vital Vegas said to John, when he first tweeted about the subject, "I understand your enthusiasm on this subject, but I would caution you to be careful about who and what you're dubbing nonsense. Guinness, the company whose record this is, expanded the criteria. You have strong opinions, but they're based upon a false premise. You're gearing up for a battle, but it's the wrong battlefield." What the hell does that mean? You're gearing up for a battle and it's the wrong battlefield. But notice that Vital Vegas did say they expanded the criteria. Well, that's interesting. They wouldn't expand it for John and his wife. They wouldn't expand it for the other guy who tried it after John and his wife. But suddenly when Casino.org wants to do it, they, quote, expand the criteria for what they consider a casino visit, which isn't fair. It's not fair to the guy in 2017. Now, if they want to make a new category of casino visits that don't involve live table games and have a separate record for that, that's fine. But to break the previous record and make it easier for them to break it is totally unfair. That would be like me setting a record for running a marathon where they let me drive 20 out of the 26 miles. That wouldn't be fair to the existing marathon record holders. Because yes, if you let me drive 20 of those miles and run the final 6 in a marathon, I could probably break the world record in a marathon. But that would not be fair, would it? That's basically what's being allowed here, so that they can go to an expanded list of casinos and have them considered casinos and not have to play live table games and break the record that way, when everybody else was held to the much stricter standards. But it gets worse. So John responded, "I downloaded the rules for this record from Guinness World Records yesterday and today. They still say chips must be purchased from a dealer who signed off the transaction in a logbook. These are the rules for applying for the record that your group claims was just broken. We have the most detailed data about the number of Las Vegas Valley casinos with electronic table games, which we have at 71. Maybe we missed it by 1 or 2 because they're in obscure locations, but we didn't miss 44. Even if your group got Guinness to bend the rules to include electronic table games, your group's content and Guinness agree slots are disallowed. At a minimum, they played video blackjack or roulette on slots, unless it's proved that we missed 40-plus casinos with electronic table games, which is a great point. Like, obviously, with what a thorough job John does with tracking these casinos, there's no way he missed 40 of them that had these. He went on to write, "This group has zero transparency. There are no social media posts proving any of this. Nobody on the outside knows where they even played. Our data shows they couldn't play 115 electronic table games as they claim under their industry-accepted definition of it. Nobody has proven otherwise, even though we've been discussing it for days. Over 8 hours after they stopped, your group's tracker said they played at 80, not 115. Any reasonable person would question that. We congratulated the other group when they beat us and partied with them. Their evidence was available to the world instantly. There is nothing like that. No proof has been shared, and it seems like reported rules were not followed, even if electronic table games were suddenly allowed. It sounds like all parties involved don't know what an electronic table game is. Any machine you would find in a tavern or store is not an electronic table game under industry's definition. It's always a slot, which your group said was not going to count." Because casino.org, before this whole thing happened, I'm going to play you the video shortly, they were saying what counts and what doesn't count, and they even said that playing slots doesn't count. And these Game King machines, which have video poker and video blackjack, those don't count. Those are considered slots, and that's not an electronic table game by any definition. So you can't just walk in and play a Game King and play one-handed blackjack on there and count that as having been in a casino and played blackjack. They themselves said this does not count. And Guinness said it doesn't count. Vital Vegas simply responded, "They met Guinness World Records guidelines. They are under no obligation to meet yours." What a nasty statement. Like, he addresses none of this. He doesn't explain how they padded 35 visits on the end when their own tracker said 80. He doesn't explain where they were, what they played, whether or not they were counting video blackjack on a Game King machine. Just said, hey, Guinness said it's okay. We don't care what you think. They're under no obligation to prove it to you. Tough luck. Well, they kind of are, because they're doing this publicly. This is a big public stunt. They're trying to get the world to buy in to the fact that they've set this record. So you can't have a big promotion about a record you're about to set, and then when people question it, say, oh, none of your business. You don't need to know this. They're under no obligation to tell you. Yes, they are. If this is going to be a big secret, if this is going to be opaque, then don't build a big promotion around it. Don't make a big publicity stunt around it. Once you do that, then yes, you owe the public an explanation. So, sorry you guys got caught cheating. Now, Vital Vegas was in a very foul mood at that point. When I made a joke, he came back with a nasty response and instantly blocked me. So I said, I'd sooner believe Santa Claus visited billions of chimneys in one night. And he wrote back, thankfully the Guinness adjudicator makes the ruling and not you then. And then he blocked me. Pretty crappy, huh? I was on his podcast. We've gotten along for the last few years. Like, he's not my friend, but we've been very cordial with one another. We've interacted a lot on Twitter. I've not been critical about him at all. Even some things he's tweeted about that I wanted to kind of say some things that I strongly disagree. I was polite about the way I did it. I was careful about the way I interacted with him because I know he's kind of sensitive about people who come back at him. So I've tried to really get along with the guy. And he blocked me over this because I made a joke about Santa Claus. Now, I'm actually presently unblocked, sort of, because that was on my alternate account because this is on one of the days I was banned. Remember, I got banned near the end of September? So I was on my second account. So once I got unbanned on my main account on Twitter, then I guess I'm unblocked technically. And he's interacted with me since then and acted like he didn't block me, but whatever. This is already looking very shady, right? John raised a lot of good points. Casino.org's own tracker showed them at 80 and then suddenly jumped to 115 way after the whole thing was over. That there just simply were not anywhere near 115 casinos with either live or electronic table games. They would not list where they had been. Vital Vegas would not give any kind of real rebuttal other than just saying Guinness certified it, go away. the whole proof from casino.org, who claimed they were embedding a reporter to document the whole thing. They didn't document anything. Their whole proof was basically, trust us, bro. John's guess was that they set this record by going into little taverns and supermarkets and maybe gas stations and playing Game King machines, playing one-handed video of blackjack and counting it as a casino visit. And I have a feeling he's right. So I went and looked at some of the articles regarding this. I looked at a casino.org article that was dated September 25th, and it was written by Vital Vegas. And it said they began their historic journey on Thursday, September 25th at 3 p.m. local time in Southern Nevada. The Guinness World Records requires that they place a table game or electronic table game bet to count as a casino visit. Playing a slot machine, placing a sports bet, or gambling in any other capacity does not. The Guinness rules prohibit the use of taxis, ride shares, self-driving vehicles, and hired cars. Scheduled public transportations like buses, trains, and monorails is allowed, though the duo is sticking to their e-bikes. So already they're admitting in the article that electronic table games are allowed, but he's admitting that slots are not. So yes, they already expanded it, which is very strange. But even under that definition, it still doesn't make any sense. Then again, with that progress page, it showed 80 instead of 115, and then they jumped to 115 8 hours later. Now here's a promotional video that they posted about the attempt. This was before they had actually done it. It's weird music. Oh boy. So it says, follow our team and you could win a trip to Vegas. Let's get that record. Casino.org. Okay, it's terrible music in the background. But when it says, let's get that record, obviously they are very invested in making this record happen. They're not just following two dudes attempting it. This whole thing is built around them getting it. And of course, it'd be hugely disappointing to Casino.org and this whole promotion they built around it if they don't get it. So that, to me, is already a big problem. It's one thing to follow someone attempting to make a record, or even to sponsor someone attempting to make a record, but to actually really build a big promotion and gimmick around it, that seems like they're going to pull some shenanigans to make sure it happens, and that's what I believe occurred here. Now, I wouldn't call this a major scandal. It's mostly victimless, but truthfully, it feels gross. If you're going to build a gimmick around breaking a niche gambling record, at least do it honestly. The fact that Guinness markedly changed their definition of a casino visit once a new record attempt was backed by deep-pocketed sponsors, because this had a lot of sponsors to it too. This wasn't just Casino.org. They had Circa sponsoring it. They had like 8 different sponsors listed, so there's a lot of money behind this. So once that's involved, all of a sudden that they allow electronic table games and e-bikes to be used, and then they somehow certify a lot more casinos visited than make any sense, even with their new definition, and nobody questions it, like, that already looks pretty bad for both Casino.org and Guinness. And by the way, there's a whole ceremony at Circa where this judge from the Guinness Book of World Records was there and giving them a certificate that they broke it, and this is on video. So they have that on video, but not the actual casino visits themselves. Well, John kept going hard at Casino.org about this. He really wanted to debunk this further. And I supported that. I was posting a lot of messages myself in response to what John was posting, and I was being very supportive of what he was doing because this whole thing was BS. He posted on September 29th, a Guinness Most Casinos Visited in 24 Hours update. We are advocating for the 2017 record holders to keep it. Guinness confirmed slots are disallowed and no new slot record will be created. We will share our data with Guinness, proving that the 115 live table and electronic claim is impossible. Our data shows only 73 Las Vegas Valley casino licenses have them. The list of the 115 casinos still has not been shared. However, the participants posted a pic from a slots-only Railroad Pass. That's a casino there in the Vegas area called Railroad Pass. It has no live tables or electronic table games. Interesting. So Basically, one of them was Railroad Pass because they posted a picture from it, and he's noting that they have nothing that fits for this record. So obviously they were playing something like Game King. He wrote, "We have started the challenge process to protect the current record holders." So they submitted an actual complaint to Guinness to challenge this record claim, even though they had their own person there from Guinness certifying it at the time. Casino.org kept doubling down, though. On October 1st, they posted, "Check out some of the highlights from our Guinness World Record. 115 casinos in just 24 hours. Huge props to Joel and Garrett for pulling off this wild ride." Well, they were not getting good reactions from this. People didn't like that tweet. People didn't like Vital Vegas's initial tweet once John pointed out what was going on. People were not fooled by this. This was not going the way that Casino.org was hoping. Most of the responses back to this and their previous tweet about the matter were critical or trolling them. There were very few tweets in response saying, "Oh, great job. Wow, this is cool, blah, blah, blah." No, it was a lot of people calling them out for being shady, for being liars. People posting laughing emojis. People saying, "How is this possible? There's not 115 licenses like this." Someone wrote, "Another reason that no one takes anything Guinness-related serious anymore. I can't believe Circa put their name on this," someone else wrote. People are posting the screenshots showing that they went to 80, not 115, from their own tracker. Just bash, 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 bash in response. People are just making fun of Casino.org for continuing to press this. So they were hoping everyone was going to be excited and everyone was going to admire these guys for pulling off this record and that there's going to be a lot of buzz surrounding it. They paid these guys to be there. I don't know if they paid the expenses of the Guinness guy to be there. They built a whole ceremony around it, and they got all these sponsors involved, and they really thought this was going to be a big thing, and the reactions that were coming through on X about it were almost all negative. People were not having this. People were not believing this. People were believing John, and for good reason, because he was right. They were not liking the refusal to list the casinos, the mysterious jump in number of casinos that they visited, the fact that this was impossible. People weren't liking this. And people were letting them know this in response to their tweets. So this is a failure. This is a big failure. This is not what they were expecting. They thought this was going to be something that everyone was going to love. Instead, everyone just thought they were shady and hated it. Which surprised me because I thought that once this happened, they were going to give up, but they just did not want to give up. They still kept pressing it. They still kept promoting it. They still were posting little videos of these guys. As if everyone's just going to go, "Oh, well, okay, if you keep posting about it, we'll just forget that this whole thing is really, really shady. We'll just forget that it's impossible to have gone to this many casinos, given how many licenses there are. We'll forget about the fact that you would not list them, or that John proved you guys did something that..." We'll just say, "Oh, great. Good for these two guys. We're proud of them." But you know what? There's something else that kind of bugged me here, in addition to all this. It's that they brought in two outsiders to break this record. They did not even have one of their own do it. It's not like they had Vital Vegas himself try it or get somebody else who's known in the gambling community. They got two guys who, I don't even know if they gamble, but nobody knew who they were in the gambling community. Two guys from out of state. They bring into Vegas, and they somehow get Guinness to bend the rules tremendously and certify it, when prior to this, they were very strict about it. Remember, they would not award it to John or the person who did it after John. But somehow they were very, very strict about it until the Casino.org attempt less than 2 years later. And then all of a sudden they bend every rule possible. Keep in mind, there are more than 1,500 casinos in Vegas by the definition of anything with a machine. Because that would include supermarkets, bars, kind of pseudo casinos like Dottie's and PT's, which kind of double as bars and casinos. There's 1,500 plus of these in the Las Vegas area. Just anything with any kind of gambling device. So going to 115 out of those is not very impressive. Anyone could easily smash that 115 record if they just go to those. You could just go down the street and keep stopping at every gas station, every supermarket, everything like Dotties or PTs at every bar, you could do way more than 115 in 24 hours if you're dedicated enough. So what's the point of this record? Guinness had very, very strict criteria, and they bent their own criteria, and you have to wonder why. Now, I have some theories. Now, again, these are just theories. These are just guesses, but I have some theories. Remember, there was a guy from Guinness there who certified it, and I don't know if he's local. They may have brought him there. They did admit that they paid these two guys $4,000 and probably also covered their expenses. But maybe they also paid and covered the expenses for the guy from Guinness to certify and be part of this whole thing. And maybe they didn't directly say it to him. Maybe they didn't say, hey, you better certify it or else. Or we're giving you this money so you certify it. But it may have been like a wink, wink, nudge, nudge sort of situation. Like, this is very important to us to see this record broken. So, can you work with us to make sure that this happens? And then they bring the guy out there and he finds a way to make it happen. And I don't understand why it went from 80 on their tracker to 115, but maybe what they decided after originally doing 80 was it was too close to the other record of 74, so they wanted to really smash it and make it look like these guys just really blew it away, and also these guys then will be in the record books for a long time if it is believed they really went to 115, and if everybody else is held to these strict rules regarding breaking it, except them, then it's actually impossible to break. But it really bothered me that these guys were outsiders. Like, it was charming when John and Christina tried to do it because they are not outsiders. They live in Vegas. They report on casinos. They've been doing this for years. People know who they are. They're part of the gambling community. Had I attempted this, it would be fine because I am a longtime member of the gambling in Vegas community. Even though I don't live in Vegas anymore, I lived there for a number of years, and I'm definitely part of the gambling community in several ways. There's many other people that would be totally fine to be attempting this record because they're part of the gambling community. Now, I'm not saying you have to be part of the gambling community to attempt this record. If you wanted to show up in Vegas and try, and you break it, then fine, you've done it. And I don't know much about the other people who broke this in 2017. But if you're going to build a promotion around people doing it, at least have it be people who are from the gambling community. Don't bring in these outsider reality show guys from Iowa or wherever the hell they're from, and then bend all the rules to have them do it and obliterate the rules that others followed to previously get the record. That's such disrespect to the community that you're aiming your columns at. Why would you do that? Why would you bring in outsiders to then cheat to break the record? That's so disrespectful to those in the gambling community that would want to follow this. And this isn't something epic. This is lame and stupid. Nobody cares about two weird non-gamblers from another state coming to Vegas to set a casino playing record if it's not done honestly. The only way we care is by looking down on it and thinking it's dishonest. And again, it's not a gigantic scandal. It's just something shady and dishonest, and it's a bad look. Why even do it? On September 29th, Vital Vegas had some interesting admissions in an article he wrote. And this is after John had raised issue. I think Vital Vegas was trying to sort of admit this while still making it look like it's all okay. He admitted that they got an all-expense-paid trip to Las Vegas, and they also got $4,000 for doing this, on top of the expensive trip that was paid for them, and that they also covered their bets that they made during their visits to these casinos. He also wrote, based upon the math, it's clear that Guinness didn't hold the record breakers to a strict interpretation of the previous criteria, as there aren't 115 proper casinos in Las Vegas to visit. There are around 80 venues people think of as casinos on the Strip and downtown. There are, however, more than 115 venues we'll call, quote, gaming establishments, otherwise known informally as, quote, slot parlors. Clark County has about 1,500 such places. Okay, so that's just what I said there. So why is this impressive then? There seems to be confusion around the official rules because they currently say only casinos with table games or electronic table games qualify for this record, not slots. We prefer the broader definition that appears to include taverns and bars with bar top games, most notably chains like Dotties and PTs. The folks at Guinness aren't casino experts, they're record experts. A lot of people don't really get the difference between electronic table games and slots. Most bar top machines have table games like blackjack on them. Forest for the trees. Let's think of it this way. This wasn't so much breaking a record as setting a new record with a new and more realistic set of rules. Come on. So he's basically admitting here that they went to a lot of Dotties and PTs and bars and played these Game King machines that have video blackjack on them. And that they're just calling it casinos, and that Guinness went along with it for unknown reasons. And he says, let's think of it this way. This wasn't so much breaking a record as setting a new record with a new and more realistic set of rules. But it's not a new record. This was breaking the old record. They kicked the other old record off. Let's think of it this way. Here, let's think of this way. For whatever reason, maybe even bribery, Guinness agreed to totally abandon their strict rules regarding this record and allowed these two assholes and their Casino.org sugar daddies to create an entirely new set of rules on the fly and boot the previously set record that was done legitimately out of the book. Not good. Not good at all. And Guinness wouldn't let anyone else do this, only Casino.org for some reason. So this will be mostly a win for those who are skeptical, such as John Mehaffey. Casino.org's shady attempt to push this onto the community backfired spectacularly. They ended up looking like clowns. They ended up looking shady. They ended up looking obnoxious and dishonest. And everything that they thought they were getting out of this whole event just did not work. People didn't like it. People were criticizing it. People were making fun of it. But this is what happens when a once venerable organization starts to fall upon hard times, when they get less relevant, when they feel that they have to cut corners in order to be still viable. I've always wondered what Guinness was getting out of this whole thing. Was it just this one judge who got incentivized in some way to go along with it, or was Guinness itself complicit because this got them publicity? When was the last time you thought about the Guinness Book of World Records? I bet it's been a long time. So when they get mentioned, when there's an attempted high-profile record that is being challenged and a big promotion built around it, that will get people thinking of the Guinness Book of World Records again. Maybe that's all they wanted. When things weren't done according to the way they were supposed to, and someone with a lot of knowledge called it out, well, then they were kind of over a barrel. And good job, John Mehaffey. I love journalism like that. I love when people call out bullshit. I like when those attempting to manipulate the community or treat us like we're stupid end up having egg on their face. And what's so strange here is that Casino.org puts out a lot of articles that are aimed at people who are kind of more aware and smarter about gambling-related matters. They don't just put out trash content that's just very simplistic. They put out stuff that someone who is familiar with Vegas and familiar with the gambling world will find interesting. Kind of deeper dives. A lot of ventures into the weird and seedier side of the gambling and Vegas world. That's why it's so strange that they would attempt something like this that is just so phony and dishonest and disingenuous. And they kept doubling down on it. They could have just said, okay, sorry, Guinness must have gotten confused, we'll withdraw the whole thing. They could have said that, but they just kept pressing. And they even had one of their PR people that was hassling John there in one of the X threads, trying to make him look bad, and that failed miserably as well. So everything they tried didn't work. Every attempt they made to discredit what John was doing did not work. And their attempt to build excitement around this whole record did not work. And here's a tip for you, Casino.org, and any other organization that attempts to pull the wool over the community's eyes in the name of promotion. Don't. There are a lot of smart and informed and alert people that are part of the Vegas and gambling and casino communities. And all it takes is one of us to notice, and you'll end up looking like you're not very good people. So just don't try it. Just be honest, be straightforward. Don't treat your readers like they're dumb. Just like I don't treat my listeners like they're dumb. I don't try to pull the wool over your eyes. Casino.org should not have tried to pull the wool over their readers' eyes. And I hope they've learned from it. If you want to text me, 775-372-8355. From the 916, I believe this is Desert Runner. He said, Guinness should list Poker Fraud Alert as the longest-running live vampire radio show. Yeah, he likes to call this vampire radio because I do this show late at night these days. And that definitely happened this time, starting at 3-something in the morning. All right, moving on to something completely different. Something that's not getting very much attention, but could actually be a piece of good news for gamblers. And I'm going to have to break a promise I made by a little bit because I am going to have to mention politics slightly. But it's not going to really be controversial. But it is going to be about Donald Trump in a way. In August 2025, Donald Trump put out an executive order regarding something called debanking. And this may have an impact, a positive impact, on gamblers. I hope it does. This wasn't really aimed at gamblers, but we may end up getting a benefit from it. So let me tell you the problem, then I'll tell you how this might solve it. Banks actually have the right presently, or at least it's believed they do. They have the right presently to just deny service to people. And they've been doing so. It's not just they think they have the right. They've actually been doing so, where customers have just been told that they have to leave the bank. Now, they don't steal people's money. So if you get debanked, what happens is the bank will pay you whatever your balance is and then close your account and boot you. And one group of people that get debanked fairly often are professional gamblers. In fact, there's a few banks that will even make you certify that your funds with them didn't come from gambling, whether it's legal or illegal. That when you sign up for an account, you have to certify that you did not get these funds from gambling, nor will you deposit any money there that you derive from gambling. Now, this should be illegal for them to do, but it isn't. In fact, even Daniel Negreanu, who of course is very high profile, has been dropped from major banks for being a gambler. However, this is not really what's been getting in the news regarding debanking, and this has been happening for a long time. But what's more recent is that some banks have dropped people because of controversial political views they hold. In the early 2020s, when it was all the rage to try to pick on conservatives, some banks were dropping people who were conservative influencers on social media, just because the bank claimed that they didn't like the message that these people were putting out. And in some cases, these weren't even extreme people. They just put out a mainstream conservative message, and some banks were saying, yeah, we don't want your business. We're closing your account. So that's where the term debanking was really born. But again, this has been happening to gamblers for decades. But when it started happening to political influencers, it got more attention. Well, as I said, in August 2025, Donald Trump put out an executive order regarding debanking and is attempting to stop this, to make this illegal for banks to disassociate with customers like this for these type of reasons. Here is the main part of the order. It said, the term, quote, politicized or unlawful debanking refers to an act by a bank, savings association, credit union, or other financial services provider to directly or indirectly adversely restrict access to or adversely modify the conditions of accounts, loans, or other banking products or financial services of any customer or potential customer on the basis of the potential customer's political or religious beliefs. Now here's the important part for us. Or on the basis of the customers or potential customers' lawful business activities that the financial service provider disagrees with or disfavors for political reasons. It doesn't directly mention gambling, of course, but the last part, or on the basis of the customers or potential customers' lawful business activities that the financial service provider disagrees with, that would definitely cover gambling. Because if you are doing legal, lawful gambling, and that is your business, they should not be able to debank you, according to this executive order. However, it depends which way you read this, because it's kind of a run-on sentence at the end. or on the basis of the customers or potential customers' lawful business activities that the financial service provider disagrees with or disfavors for political reasons. So you could read this as it only covers where you are debanked because they disagree for political reasons with what your lawful business is, such as conservative political commentator. So it depends if you read this as two separate things or as one long thing. If it's just that they can't debank you based upon your lawful business activities that they don't like for political reasons, then that doesn't help us because gambling isn't really political. But if he's saying here that they can't debank you either for lawful business activities they don't like or because they don't like you for political reasons, which is what I think it's saying, then this should help us. They should not be able to say you have to certify these funds didn't come from gambling. They can say you have to certify it didn't come from illegal gambling or unlicensed gambling, but they can't say gambling. So it's very possible that this will make the whole debanking thing illegal. Now, again, this is just an executive order. This could be challenged, or this could go nowhere, and this may have no impact. But if it actually does become law, then the days of gamblers being debanked and booted out of whatever bank they're doing business with and told to take their money and get out, those days may be over. What also might be over could be the harassment that gamblers have received from banks when banks start to suspect them of being gamblers and want to either drive them away or try overly hard to prove something wrong is happening. Now, I believe that I was the victim of something like this. I've never been debanked, but in around 2016, 2017, I was being treated extremely suspiciously by a major bank. I won't say which one, but one of the major banks was treating me very badly and very suspiciously to the point where I finally got tired of it and confronted them. When I did confront them, and I did this in a branch where I'd never been before because I didn't want any kind of bias, the bank employee there claimed that there were no negative notes on my account and even showed me a screen where they claimed that if there were notes, that these notes would exist, and I was shown that there are no notes. Now, of course, they could have still been hiding something and not showing me other screens that had these notes, but they claimed they were showing me everything. But basically, what I was complaining about was that every time I did a transaction there, I was being hassled with very intrusive questions that just would not stop. So I'll give you an example. Let's say I walked in to withdraw $7,000 cash to take to Vegas. The teller would ask, so what are you needing this cash for this weekend? And I'd respond, oh, well, I'm going to Vegas. I just like having enough money on me to gamble. And the teller would say, oh, okay, so where do you like to gamble? That's already getting kind of intrusive. But still I respond, okay, well, lots of places. It's just wherever I happen to be. Bellagio, Aria, Cosmopolitan, wherever. And then the teller says, well, so how long is the trip going to be? You going to go 2 days, 3 days, maybe longer? It's like, what the hell? Why do they want to know how long I'm going to go? So I say, well, probably 3 days. I'll see how it goes. Depends how I'm doing. If I lose everything right away, I might come right back. The teller will say, well, so when you usually go, is it something like 3 days or usually longer? It felt like an FBI interrogation. Every time I answered a question, they would have a follow-up wanting even more detail. So this couldn't just be friendly conversation. This really was like an interrogation. The reason I didn't go off on them is I didn't want to get debanked. That was the reason I was answering at all. I really just felt like saying, this is none of your business. Please stop hammering me with these questions. But I was afraid that they would say, okay, well, we're not going to do business with you anymore. So I was trying to just give them very generic sounding answers and hope to get past this. But every time I was coming in, I was getting crap like this. And it wasn't just in one city or at one branch. I had this occurring a lot. In fact, most times I went into the branch, at any branch, even ones more than 100 miles apart from one another. However, after I confronted them about this at a branch I had not been before, it stopped. It abruptly stopped. They insisted to me that nothing's wrong, that there's nothing suspicious, that they see I'm in good standing. They don't know why this is happening, that just maybe the tellers are being overly friendly and don't realize that they're offending me. And I said, no, it's not that. I don't mind answering a few questions in polite conversation. This was like an interrogation, and it's like this every time. So my guess as to what was going on there was that they were suspecting something about me. I don't know what. I wasn't doing anything illegal, but they were suspecting something about me. And there's probably some note there that every time I come in to do any kind of transaction to just ask me as many questions as possible and figure out what's going on with me. And that once I confronted them about this, they probably sent an email or put some kind of note there that I'm on to them and not to bother with this anymore. That's my guess. And so probably at that point, they reviewed my account and decided whether they were going to debank me or not, and then decided, it looks like this guy's okay, and left me alone. I think that's probably what happened. I was probably close to getting debanked, but they decided, we don't have enough here, just let's leave him alone. No point to do these conversations anymore because he's obviously on to us. So it's no coincidence that this stopped as soon as I confronted them about it. So this is the type of thing I'd love to see stop. Because if I know they can't debank me, and I know I'm not doing anything illegal or wrong, then next time they were to ask me something like this, I'll have some polite conversation, but the second I feel it's getting intrusive, I'll just say, I'm sorry, I'm not comfortable talking about this. Please don't ask me these type of questions. I'm not here to have conversations. I'm just here to do banking business with you. And if I know they can't debank me for that, that's what I would say. The only reason I was going along with this is because I didn't want to be debanked. So it'd be great if that option was taken away from them. So no matter what you think of Trump, at least this is one good thing that's being done for gamblers. It's not really being done for gamblers, but it's going to help gamblers if this ends up becoming the new rule or the new law, provided it's what I think it is. It's not totally clear, but that's what it looks like to me, is that as long as you're not breaking the law, that they cannot debank you, and basically they have to serve you whether they like it or not. And that's good. That should be the rule. Banks should not have the right to refuse service to you because they don't like your politics or your profession. And by the way, for those of you that are wondering why they shouldn't have that right to refuse service, like you, I'm sure are aware that restaurants can do it, a lot of other businesses can do it, so why can't banks do it? Well, because banks are an essential service. It's for some reason the phone company can't refuse service to you unless you owe them money or something, but they can't just say, we don't like your politics, you can't have a phone line. Or the cable company can't say, we don't like your politics, you can't get cable. We don't like that you're a gambler, you can't get these things. They're not allowed to do that. These are essential services. So there are certain rights you have to use essential services without getting banned. They just don't have the right to send you away even if they don't like you. And banks should be in that category, aside from when they have good reason to believe that you are breaking the law. And there should be a pretty high bar for that as well. So hopefully that goes somewhere. The executive order was only 2 months ago, but there hasn't been much movement on it, but we will see. Hopefully that is something that changes. It'll feel good to tell these banks to stuff it next time they ask me these intrusive questions. Though they haven't done it in a while, but it'd feel good to get these type of questions and just tell them, no, I'm not telling you. I'm not telling you because I don't want to. It's none of your business. I'm here to withdraw money. I'm here to deposit money, whatever I'm doing. Let me do it. I don't want to talk to you further. I don't want to have discussions about my personal life or how I spend my money. It's none of your business. Because it really isn't. Banks are required to report attempted money laundering or structuring or other illegal financial transactions. But if it's something lawful, if it's something that is legal and they just don't particularly care for, this really is none of their business. And they should not be bothering you. They should not be demanding to know what you're going to do with the money you withdraw. If it's your money and you're withdrawing it, then they should not be asking you what you're going to do with it. That's really none of their business. Pisses me off when I get those questions. That's really not something they should be asking me. Let's talk about JB Pritzker and the recent gambling-related story surrounding him, because I've had a lot of people asking me to discuss this one and give my take on it. There's a lot of questions surrounding this. JB Pritzker is the current governor of Illinois, and he is considered one of the front runners to be the Democratic candidate for president in 2028. He is 60 years old. He's a very fat guy. He is definitely seen as one of the candidates to watch for the 2028 race, which isn't going to be happening really soon, but it's not as far away as you think. And a story came out about him because he has to make his returns public. A story came out about him regarding supposedly $1.4 million in gambling winnings that he declared on his taxes in 2024. And people started asking some questions like, what is this? Did he really win over $1 million gambling? And what are the circumstances here? And is there any chance that this was actually some sort of bribe that was disguised as gambling? And where was this gambling? How high was he playing? Why did nobody notice this at the time and ever report that they saw him gambling? He's a pretty recognizable figure, especially just because of his size. So what is going on with JB Pritzker? Well, I found this to be less interesting of a story as other people have. A lot of people on the right were looking for a scandal here. Because again, he's a Democratic frontrunner for president. So a lot of people wanted a negative story about him, especially because he's been clashing with Trump recently. And they were hoping that this was some evidence that he was receiving money that was passed through a casino environment in order to get it over to him and not look like it was a bribe. And I will say that that is a good environment to pass money if you are going to take a bribe. Casinos are used all the time for things like that. For bribes, for money laundering, anything along those lines. A lot of cash moves within casinos. You can pretend they were just winnings. However, there's one factor that makes a bribe highly unlikely. And that is because JB Pritzker has a lot of money. At the moment, he is worth
$1 million.
a little bit more than that. He's worth almost $4 billion. So while $1.4 million sounds like a whole lot of money to you and to me, it is not that much money to JB Pritzker. If he has almost $4 billion. He would not be jeopardizing his present and future by taking a $1.4 million bribe when he's trying to run for president, especially. That's the last thing he would do. It's a stupid risk. Because an extra $1.4 million is not going to do anything to change his lifestyle. His lifestyle will not change one bit with that extra money. And yet, if he's caught taking a bribe, then that could ruin his life. Not only as governor of Illinois, but also that would be the end of his presidential candidacy that he's hoping to have. And there really is not a strong Democrat right now who is planning to run in 2028. So he actually could be the front runner. So this is the last thing he would ever do to screw this up. But what is the story then? Did he really win $1.4 million in blackjack, and how? I mean, it's not easy to win $1.4 million in blackjack. If it was, I would be doing it right now, but it's not. So how did he win $1.4 million in blackjack, and how did nobody notice it until he declared it on his taxes? Is there something else going on here that is not being said? Well, maybe, but I don't think it is what you might be picturing. Now, let me tell you first what he's claiming, and then I'll tell you what I really believe. He's claiming that he was in Vegas and that he basically had one session and got lucky. And that can happen. You can get lucky in Vegas, even if the odds are against you. So that's his claim, that he was in Vegas and he quit ahead. He said, I was incredibly lucky. You have to be to end up ahead, frankly, going to a casino anywhere. Now remember, the guy has almost $4 billion, so he's not going to go sit down at a blackjack table and play $100 a hand. That's super meaningless to him. So yes, someone with almost $4 billion is going to play for a lot of money. So at least it feels like he's gambling for something that means something to him. So it is very believable he could play at such high stakes where a $1.4 million win would be reasonable if he just happens to get lucky and play a short time and quit. Blackjack is one of these games where, yes, in the short term, if you run well, you can win. If you sit there long enough, eventually the odds will catch up and you will lose, unless you're counting cards, which I doubt he was. So yes, it is possible that he would sit down in a casino, play at very high stakes, win $1.4 million and say, yeah, you know what? I think I'm done. I'll quit while I'm ahead. And then he leaves and then he declares it on his taxes because he has to. By law, he has to, and the last thing he's going to do here is break the law and not declare it. Now, why he would go do this in the first place, knowing he has to declare it and questions will be asked about it, even if he didn't do anything wrong, I don't know. Like, why can't he hold back the gambling for the moment? But maybe he didn't think about that when he played. It is a little bit odd, the whole thing. On Politico.com, a supposed longtime friend of his claims that he's a whale in Vegas, he said, of Pritzker. And this person also claims that he's a very thoughtful player. He has a very good understanding of the game's nuances. He's really comfortable around a poker table. He's always one of the better players of these tournaments. Now, he's referring to poker tournaments that Pritzker holds for charity. And these are known as well. In fact, he brought them up when the blackjack gambling was being discussed recently. And basically, he holds these tournaments to raise money for charity, which is legal to do there. This friend of his is saying that Pritzker is actually a pretty good poker player. He's one of the better people in these charity tournaments, and that it's not surprising he also plays blackjack and knows what he's doing. Someone also said that Pritzker has long been known for his affinity for cards, that there's a poker book, I wonder which one, that was on the shelf of his Chicago office, and that when he's traveled in the past, he's been seen going up to a table to play blackjack. So that would make me think that this is not the only session he had in 2024. It wasn't just one session. He happened to be in Vegas, played some high-stakes blackjack for a short time, $1.4 million, cashed it out, and then declared it on his taxes as he's required to. What if he played other sessions? But if that's the case, why haven't we seen these on the tax return, and why haven't we heard about them? Well, keep in mind, you don't have to report losses on your tax return. What you're required to report is your net win, if any, when you're gambling. So if you go to a casino once or on one trip and you lose, you don't have to report anything. You don't have to report that you lost. That's not required. Now, if you have two sessions, one where you win and one where you lose, but you lost more than you won, then again, you don't owe any taxes. But if there's a record that has been sent into the IRS to show that you made a large cash out, which of course there would be for $1.4 million, you do have to explain, if you don't want to pay taxes on that $1.4 million, why you don't need to. And you would have to show that you had a loss, or at least say that you had a loss that was equal to or greater than that amount. So basically, you only owe taxes if you have won overall. So does this mean that Pritzker was just $1.4 million ahead overall? Well, he's claiming it was just one session. But let me tell you my theory. And I think it's pretty close to this. If I had to guess, I bet there's a good chance this is what really happened. My guess is that Pritzker lost more than he won. But he did have this one good session where he won $1.4 million, and when he cashed out, this was sent to the IRS, and he needed to declare it. And the problem is, for him not to pay taxes on that $1.4 million win, he would have to show that he lost more than that, or at least claim he lost more than that. And even if he really did lose more than that, he probably wouldn't want to claim it. Why? Because he wants to run for president. And the last thing he'd probably want on his tax return that people would take a look at is that he is a problem gambler. So let's say he did have that $1.4 million that the IRS knows about because of that large cash out. But let's say that he had several other sessions and overall he's down $4 million. Well, to him, that's not very much money. But to the average person, that sounds really bad. That makes it sound like JB Pritzker has a gambling issue. He's losing $4 million in 1 year playing blackjack. And you may think, well, can we really trust this guy, this problem gambler, to run the country? And people might start to have doubts about him. People don't want to picture someone like that being president. So it might just be worth it to him to make it look like he gambled once, got lucky, and didn't play again, aside from these charity poker tournaments. That looks a lot better for him than to say, oh, I won $1.4 million in this session, but these other sessions combined, I lost $4 million, $5 million. And if he tries to explain to people, well, you have to understand I have almost $4 billion, so this is not very much money to me, well, then he looks out of touch. Then he looks like he can't relate to the average American. If he's saying, oh, it was only $5 million I lost, no big deal. If you say that, then you look like someone who just can't understand what it's like to live in America as an average person. And again, you don't want that person as president. See, something Trump is good at, I guess I'm being political again, I'm sorry, but something Trump is good at is making it seem like he understands the average person. I'm not saying he necessarily does, but he's good at making the average person feel that he understands what they're going through, that he understands what they need, what they want, even though he doesn't pretend to be one of them. But not many politicians can pull that off. So really what they try to do is make themselves seem more like you than they actually are. And you can't do that if you're trying to explain to people that $5 million is not very much money to you. So really at that point, the best play for him to do is just declare the $1.4 million that he has to declare, pretend the losses didn't happen, pay the taxes on the $1.4 million, which, for him is probably going to be about half that or maybe more. And that's it. And really the extra taxes he's paying are not going to matter much to him. It's still a drop in the bucket compared to his net worth. So it's really just worth it for him to overpay taxes here than to list the losing sessions and explain to the IRS why he should not have to pay taxes on that $1.4 million. So I think that might be what's going on here. I do not think it's any kind of bribe or payout. I do not think something shady was happening. I had someone ask, well, why would he not have been seen gambling if this is true? Why would this only be noticed on the tax return? Why would people have not talked about this? Why wouldn't they have mentioned that he opened a credit line there or that he wired a lot of money over there? How much was he betting a hand? Why won't he say which casino he played at? What were the limits he was allowed to play? What area of the casino was he playing? Was he just at a regular table or was he at some semi-private area? Or did they perhaps give him his own table? Well, you'd be surprised how quiet casinos will keep things in order to keep a whale happy. So if Governor Pritzker, who's got almost $4 billion, likes to play blackjack, and he says, hey, I don't want the world seeing this. Can you give me a private room and a private table and let me bet up to $100K per hand? They'll say, sure. They're not going to go advertise this to the world. And yeah, it could leak out, but it could also not leak out. So just because you haven't heard of it until it was seen on his tax return doesn't mean it didn't happen. It means that some casino is probably trying to keep confidentiality for him because he bet so big. And also, who knows, one day he could be president and can remember how they kept it quiet for him, and maybe he'll do a favor for them in some way. So it's a good person to have on your side if you're a casino. So it's very possible he could have done this without it being known. And it's possible he was playing in an area that is hard to access as just the average Joe walking through the casino. So it's not like you're going to be walking through Bellagio and he's going to be at one of these tables that's like right along the walkway and betting big, and you see this fat guy there betting a lot of money. You go, oh, wait a minute, that's JB Pritzker. Oh, wow. Look at him. He's playing blackjack for $100K a hand. Wow. Yeah, if he did that, that story would have gotten out. But he doesn't have to be playing at one of those tables. He could be in one of these high-stakes salons where it's hard to get in there and hard to see what's going on, and there could be security standing there to make sure that people aren't peeping in. There's a lot of things that can be done to keep his privacy for the most part. So that's what I think happened. I don't think this is anything really suspicious or illegal or shady or bad. I think it's just a guy who likes to play blackjack who's got a ton of money and yet didn't want to show he was a losing player. He doesn't want to have the aura of being a loser or a problem gambler. And this is the way he did it. Moving on, I want to tell you about a poker player who is currently sitting in jail and has been for several months and might for a good deal longer. And it's someone you may have heard on Twitter Spaces. Jordan Cristos, who is 38 years old, was fairly active on X, and he liked to talk on Spaces there, especially in 2023 and 2024. I have encountered him on X a number of times over the years. We never have talked privately. We've never met in person, to my knowledge. We are not friends, never have been friends, and we never were enemies either. We never even had any kind of beef or argument. We just were acquaintances on social media. I was on a few Spaces where he was there. He did know who I was, and he even once asked me about some kind of fraud matter that was being discussed, figuring I would be an expert. Anyway, he vanished abruptly from social media in June. I guess, because so many people are on there, you kind of forget when someone vanishes that they're gone. But people started noticing he was gone, and someone looked it up, and they figured out why he was gone. And that was because since June, Jordan Cristos has been in jail. Now, I was told about this a number of months ago, but now there has been a Las Vegas Review-Journal article about it. So now the cat's really out of the bag. He is in jail for alleged stalking, threatening the CEO of the World Poker Tour, and even threatening a judge. So that's not very good. Now, the threatening a judge part isn't quite as bad as you might picture. You might picture he was making death threats or something. No, it wasn't that. He was threatening the judge for his child custody case, that he would sue her, and also that he was contemplating publishing a website containing her home address. So he was basically demanding she leave the case, or these things were going to happen. That's what's being alleged in court documents. So there were no physical threats against her, to my knowledge, but basically threats of doxing in a lawsuit if she didn't remove herself from his child custody case, which, by the way, you can't do. Even just threatening to sue them, like you cannot put pressure on a judge to change their behavior in an ongoing court case. You can't pressure them to leave. You can't threaten any kind of consequences if they don't make things go your way. Now, there is a process to get the judge removed from your case. You can petition the court for that. It's called papering a judge. You can do that if you think the judge is biased against you for some reason. They're never going to do it if you don't like the judge. Like if you just think, hey, the judge is against me, but I can't state that they're against me for any bias. They just don't care for me. They will not switch the judge. That's called judge shopping. They won't do it for you. But let's say the judge had a personal issue with you before this case started. And you're like, oh, no, this judge knows me from somewhere else. We had a beef about such and such. They won't be fair to me. Or, hey, this judge is friends with the other side in this case, so they're biased. Like you can paper the judge in that case. The judge is supposed to actually remove themselves from the case if they notice there's a conflict of interest. But if they don't, you can try to paper the judge and have a different judge put on your case. There also have been some cases where someone has gotten the same judge over and over who seems to be always ruling against them. So you can also claim that they've just developed a bias against you from other cases. And that will sometimes be granted. But you can't just be unhappy with how your current case is going and then start trying to pressure the judge to remove herself from the case. You can't say, get yourself off this case or I'm going to sue you. Get yourself off this case or I'm going to make a website with your home address up there. You can't do that. That's going to be a big problem. He's also accused of sending what appeared to be threats to the CEO of the World Poker Tour, Adam Pliska. Jordan was unhappy that his account, I'm not sure what type of account, maybe Club WPT Gold, but something related to the WPT. He was unhappy that his account was about to be closed. He allegedly wrote to Adam Pliska, "If you close my account, you are effectively sentencing all of your staff to open season. If you do not accept my offer, then you are going to meet the legend and the stalker in more ways than one." Of course, referring to himself. So that's pretty ominous to write. If you don't accept my offer, you're going to meet the legend and the stalker, referring to himself, in more ways than one, and that his entire staff is going to be sentenced to open season. He's also separately accused of violating a restraining order that his ex got against him. In fact, that's why he was arrested in the first place, before this other stuff all came out. Jordan does have some tournament poker success. He has $3.68 million in Hendon Mob cashes. Now remember, this is just all of his cashes added up. So this does not tell you whether or not he's up or down lifetime in tournaments. I don't know if he's up or down. This does go way back to the 2000s. His last big cash was in 2022. And his biggest cash ever was in 2013. He won a $613,000 World Poker Tour event. He had a beef with Daniel Negreanu a few years ago, which loosely revolved around Jordan's anger at Negreanu for refusing to stake him, that he would sometimes message Negreanu and try to encourage him to stake him. And Negreanu just kind of laughed it off and felt the messages were crazy and delusional. And eventually, when Negreanu was commenting on something unrelated publicly, then Jordan started giving him a hard time, and then Negreanu posted some of the screenshots to show that Jordan was bugging him and that Jordan wasn't telling the truth about the staking situation, and they went back and forth for a while. And not too long after that, in 2023, Jordan got into a beef with Sean Deeb, and that got some attention because it escalated to where Jordan was sending Deeb threatening messages. Now, some people defended Jordan in that one because, number one, Sean Deeb is just kind of a confrontational jerk sometimes. In fact, he's even done that with me before. Deeb has never threatened me or anything, but he's been a jerk to me before, and I'm sure he'll even admit that. But some criticized Deeb because he wrote to Jordan, "It won't end well for you if you continue this." And I don't think Deeb was trying to threaten anything. I think he was trying to say it won't end well for you, like reputationally, if you continue this. But apparently Jordan took this as a threat of some kind and then started sending threatening messages to Sean Deeb. He never got in any trouble for this, but that was a controversy in 2023. To my knowledge, Jordan has never been accused of any kind of stealing or scamming, so this is not about anything like that. The issues people have with him involve what seem to be unhinged behavior, but he has been sitting in jail in Clark County since June. He was arrested then in June for violating a restraining order obtained by his ex-girlfriend, and he ended up getting 180 days in jail. Now, the Las Vegas Review-Journal article that's discussing this whole thing was not a very well-written article, so it was very confusing. It seemed to imply that he's serving the 180 days in jail concurrently for the stalking the ex-girlfriend and the judge matter, that he's serving them together, and that'll be up pretty soon because he's been there since June, and it's 180 days. But then I'm also seeing that the judge matter is not part of that. So I don't exactly know what he's doing right now as far as concurrent serving of sentences. He made a plea deal on September 15th to settle two matters together, but I'm not exactly sure which matters. someone else who was discussing this with me told me that the Judge matter and the Adam Pliska matter are both pending. And those are going to carry additional sentences, and that they don't believe that he will be out of jail for at least 2 years. So it could be a while. When I have interacted with him, he's been fine. You wouldn't be able to tell from our interactions, like on the Spaces or even on Twitter when we've had a few messages back and forth. Like, you wouldn't be able to tell that there was anything wrong with him. So our interactions were always okay. But I have heard of a lot of different incidents he had where people accused him of being crazy or unhinged. And his whole thing with Negreanu, I have to admit, he came off kind of strange there. That was really my first time of really noticing him, even though he's been around for a long time. So even though he's been respectful to me personally, and we've never had any kind of beef or issue, I have witnessed some things that show the guy seems to have some problems. So I don't know how long he's going to be there in jail. You probably won't be seeing him on social media anytime soon if what I was told recently is correct, that he's got like maybe 2 more years. The article also says he has a public defender. So that kind of would indicate that he's not doing that well financially, because I know if I was facing years in jail, then I would be hiring pretty good representation to defend me, whether I was guilty or not, because that's not something you take lightly when you're facing years in prison ahead of you if the case doesn't go well. But, if he doesn't have a lot of money at the moment, then that would explain why there's a public defender. And, of course, he did ask Negreanu for staking back in 2022, so that would also indicate that there's some financial issues, but that can easily happen to anybody who's a professional poker player, as you well know. There are a number of people in poker who do have mental illness, unfortunately, and we've talked about some on this show. In fact, if you think about some we've discussed, like Matt Maraffiati, who for years struggled with his mental health and then one day, unfortunately, jumped over the railing from a high condo complex when he was having a delusional episode, and he died. So some of these have very tragic endings, much worse than just ending up in jail or prison. So I hope that Jordan gets help, and that maybe they're giving him some help in jail. I hope they are, because this does seem to be someone who has some psychological issues, whether he realizes it or not. And hopefully these can be addressed and this kind of stuff can stop. Because I can't imagine these things are made up or exaggerated, or that he's like the unluckiest guy in the world with everyone accusing him of things that he didn't do. Usually when you have this many things that all sound crazy, then the person's kind of crazy. So hopefully he gets some help here, and by the time he's released, we'll have addressed all or most of these issues. Remember Erik Persson? Erik Bergman, who runs the Maverick casinos, who also plays a lot on these live streams. For a long time, he played on Hustler Casino Live. He, in fact, was present on that infamous stream where Robbie J. Liu made that crazy call with Jack 4 offsuit and was right. But he was on that show a lot. He lost overall on there, but he then was on the competing stream that was on the Bike and some other venues. I don't think he's been on Hustler in a while. I think he had some kind of beef with them. But he's always bragged about his 27 casinos. I always talked about Maverick Gaming. He calls it Maverick Gaming because he sees himself as a maverick. He's very proud of these 27 casinos that he has around the country. Now, it was true. He really did have 27 casinos. But you have to understand, these are not large Vegas-style casinos. These are mostly small casinos in small markets. Yeah, I guess 27 of them is still impressive to have, but these are not giant operations by any means. In fact, I accidentally stayed right next door to one of them in Washington, and I was very surprised that what I was looking at was even a casino. Well, the reason I'm talking about this is because in July of 2025, Maverick Gaming declared bankruptcy. Yeah. The first person to report this bankruptcy to gambling social media was me. Now, I was not the one who originally noticed it, but just for whatever reason, nobody had brought this out to gambling social media. So I decided to do it. It wasn't a secret. In fact, it was already in the Seattle Times by the time I posted about it. On Reddit, there was some guy that really didn't care for Erik very much and yet knew a lot about Maverick Gaming and was predicting its demise. In early 2024, this person on Reddit was stating that a bankruptcy was going to happen. And then in March of 2025, again about 4 months before the actual bankruptcy, this person posted an ugly balance sheet for Maverick showing that most of these casinos were losing money. I don't know how accurate this balance sheet is, but this is what this person posted on Reddit. And it listed these casinos with 2 of them already closed. And these were all in Washington, I believe. It was showing that most of these had a loss and that it seemed like they were really headed for disaster. Now, some of these were just year-on-year differences that were negative, where they had not been losing money, but they were just not making as much as they had the previous year. So this was posted in March of 2025. It was showing the 2022 net income and the 2023 net income of each casino, and showing both the year-on-year difference and the percentage of that. One particular casino really struggled, the Roman Casino in Seattle, after making $2.2 million in 2022, supposedly lost $6.88 million in 2023. And what this person was showing, that almost every casino had a year-on-year loss, and a number of them had an actual loss. And that there were basically only a few of them that were doing fairly well as of the end of 2023. The 2024 data was not posted anywhere. But this person was saying from what they've seen already from 2022 versus 2023 that they believed that a bankruptcy was coming soon. So when I tweeted about this back in July, and I meant to discuss this then, I just forgot. I wasn't holding it back from the show or anything. I tweeted about it, and the first person to point it out on social media was me, of course, as I mentioned earlier. But the person briefly responded, but not directly to me. He does not follow me, but someone must have gotten his attention that he's being discussed, and his Maverick Gaming was being discussed. Someone named Poker Vincent wrote, "How does this affect Bally's in Providence that only recently rebranded its poker room to Maverick Gaming with a promise of an incoming stream and circuit events? I was just playing there yesterday and I'm going back today. Great room." So basically this person wants to know, how does this affect this deal that Maverick had with certain casinos like Bally's Providence to run the poker room there? And Persson responded to that pretty quickly and wrote, "It won't." So he didn't comment at all about the bankruptcy itself, other than saying, don't worry about these deals where we're running poker rooms in certain venues. That's not going to affect any of this. But it shows you that he saw that I posted about it. He definitely didn't correct anything. So you'd think if this were false or exaggerated, that he would correct it, but he did not. And of course, it was in the Seattle Times, so this wasn't just people on Reddit chirping about things. The article in the Seattle Times from July 14, 2025 says, Washington casino operator files for bankruptcy after restructuring. And it said that they filed for bankruptcy following a debt restructuring last year, referring to 2024. It filed Chapter 11 in Texas and listed total liabilities and assets in the range of $100 million to $500 million. And it owns and operates a portfolio of 27 properties across Nevada, Washington, and Colorado. Yeah, well, we know about the 27 properties for sure. It said they faced high operating costs, including large rent obligations. They had completed a debt exchange in 2024 in which it got new money and a 2-year extension for its debt, according to the S&P Global Ratings. And the new loan allowed for a payment-in-kind arrangement in which a company can pay interest with principal instead of cash. and also required cash interest starting the first quarter of 2025. The case in U.S. Bankruptcy Court of Southern District of Texas is Run It One Time LLC. I think Phil Galfond should sue him for this. What is it? Run it one time? That sounds a hell of a lot like run it once. I know neither of them invented this phrase, but still, we already have a run it once in poker. Now there's a run it one time LLC, and it is case number 25-90191 if you want to look it up. So it looks like things are struggling a bit for Maverick Gaming. And Erik has always just made such a big deal about owning these 27 casinos, so this has to be a little bit embarrassing for him because a lot of his brand, a lot of his identity was wrapped up in these casinos, that he was this successful alpha businessman who tells it to you straight and does everything right. Bankruptcy can happen. You can run things correctly and your business can just not work out. So I don't know what caused these bankruptcies. I don't know if there's things he could have done differently to have prevented it, but they definitely were struggling, at least as of 2024, and did have to declare this bankruptcy in 2025. So we'll see where it goes. I haven't heard anything about this since I posted about it 3 months ago, but I'm sure it's ongoing. Well, since we're talking about well-known people and their business is not doing well, let's get to someone even more well-known than Erik Persson. Emmitt Smith, NFL legend Emmitt Smith, had a restaurant in the Fashion Show Mall in Las Vegas. And unfortunately for Mr. Smith, that restaurant is now closed. But worse than just closed, it's been abruptly shut down and he has been locked out. Or shall I say, he and his staff have been locked out. So Emmitt Smith is 56 years old. He was a very, very good and well-known at the time NFL player. And he started a steakhouse in Vegas in the Fashion Show Mall called Emmitt's. It claimed to serve, quote, new American food. In case you don't know, the Fashion Show Mall is located across the street from the Wynn. It's on the west side of Las Vegas Boulevard. It's a very large and prominent mall, but it is notoriously confusingly laid out. And it's kind of difficult to know where to park to where you won't be hiking a long way within the mall to get where you want to go. So it's just kind of a confusing mall that I tend to avoid. I've only been there a few times despite my residency in Vegas for a number of years and my many, many visits to Vegas before and after I lived there. I just did not go there very often. It just was too big and too confusing. So restaurants in big malls like that are better off being fast casual, ones that are appealing to visit if you're already there and you just want a quick meal. And you really don't want to start a restaurant in a big mall like the Fashion Show Mall expecting that people are going to come specifically for your restaurant, because they immediately have to think about having to battle with the parking and the long walk and finding it, and that just starts to be too much effort for a lot of people, even if they want to come to the restaurant otherwise. So you're much better off starting something that is counting on existing foot traffic, like a fast casual sort of place. The more formal, the more expensive your restaurant is, and the longer it's going to take for people to dine there, the fewer are just going to come in there if they're walking by it when they're at the mall. What you really want is just something where people can grab something quickly. So they were already working with that handicap by starting a restaurant in the Fashion Show Mall, and I don't even know if they realized that at the time, but I definitely knew. Also, I bet you hadn't heard of Emmitt's in the Fashion Show Mall. It hasn't been there for all that long, and I'll get to the history shortly, but I bet you hadn't heard of it at all until maybe you heard the story about it closing. So why is that? Well, for whatever reason, it was never promoted very much. So most Vegas residents and even the tourists did not know it was even there. How was it? Well, the reviews were middling. Some people liked it. Some people complained the service was not good. And some people said the food was overly salty. Well, someone tipped off Vital Vegas, and this was around the same time he blocked me, by the way, but someone tipped him off that Emmitt's restaurant was mysteriously closed on a day it should have been open. So Vital Vegas went down there to see for himself, and he took a picture of a notice that had been posted on the door. Now, according to Vital Vegas, this was not something you could easily access. He said he found a way to access it, but most people couldn't. I don't know if he snuck in or climbed over something or had someone do him a favor. I don't know what he did, but he got up to the door, which was otherwise blocked off, and was able to take a picture of the notice that was posted on the door. Listen to this. It says, "Notice to tenant of lockout of commercial premises." So that's already not good for Emmitt's there. They were actually locked out of their own restaurant. And it says, "To Emmitt's Clarkway Entertainment LLC," and it has an address in Missouri. "Please take notice. Your landlord has changed the locks to your leased commercial premises due to your delinquent payment of rent. This lockout is authorized pursuant to NRS 18C.200. Notice of the pending lock change was mailed to you via certified mail, return receipt requested. A new key to the leased commercial premises will only be provided if you pay the delinquent rent in full during regular business hours. The delinquent rent is..." Now, how much do you think it is? How much do you think they owe in back rent? They've been locked out because they didn't pay their rent. But what do you think they owe? Maybe like $20,000 or so? Maybe 30? Well, they actually owe $407,730.88. Wow. $407,000 of back rent. Wow, that's crazy. Then it says at the end of the notice, "For coordination of payment and to obtain a new key, please contact," and it gives someone's contact info in Vegas. So, yeah, I don't think that's going to be happening. I don't think they're going to be getting that new key because I don't think they're going to be coughing up that $407,000. Then right under it, there was a second notice dated September 18th, 2025. The other one didn't have a date, but I assume it was posted the same day. It says, "Tenant, please take notice of your violation of Article 24 under your lease agreement with Fashion Show Mall, LLC. Clarkway Entertainment, LLC, a Missouri limited liability company, DBA Emmitt's. Please be advised that Article 24 of your lease agreement dated November 7th, 2021, First Amendment of lease dated November 28th, 2022, assignment of lease dated May 22nd, 2023, and second assignment dated June 26th, 2023, for space number 1240 located in the Fashion Show Mall with Fashion Show Mall LLC states, quote, if tenant shall be in default, tenant shall not have the right to remove trade fixtures, signs, or other personal property. They shall remain or become, as the case may be, the property of the landlord. Tenant, at its sole expense, shall immediately repair damage to the leased premises caused by tenant vacating the leased premises or by tenant's removal of trade fixtures, signs, and other personal property. Removing any of the items listed above will be considered a breach of your lease, as you are in default of the lease. Landlord notified you of the default by letter on May 2nd, 2025. So that's interesting. They've been notified since May that they were behind on the rent. Obviously, they're not paying $400K a month to be there, so this is a number of months together that added up to this $407K. And they're being notified here that not only are they locked out, but that their stuff in there is going to be inaccessible and that the landlord's going to be taking possession of it and can do what they want with it, like sell it. So they're saying, not only are you locked out, you can't even come in here and take back your stuff. This is ours now. So yeah, this is posted publicly by Vital Vegas, and everybody got to see these notices that, again, were not easy to get to, but he got there and now everybody sees them. Now, you got to hand it to Emmitt Smith's team. He was not personally running the restaurant, by the way. It's just he was one of the owners of the restaurant. It's named after him. but he was not personally running or managing it. But he got to hand it to his team. They were trying to make it work all the way up until the very end. They knew at the beginning of May that they were going to be locked out very soon, and somehow they made it last 5 more months. When I Googled Emmitt's, I noticed that Google listed it as a black-owned business, which of course it was because Emmitt Smith is black. But that didn't seem to make much of a dent in its problems. The only thing that really gets you is that you get listed on the NAACP website and elsewhere and benefit from a little extra free publicity. The management of the restaurant did make a statement to Las Vegas TV station KSNV Channel 3. They said, "As you know, this is a challenging time for the Las Vegas hospitality industry. While we don't have additional details to share just yet, we remain deeply grateful to our outstanding team and to the thousands of guests who have joined us since our opening." Yeah, that doesn't say anything. The restaurant was announced in 2021 but did not open until February 2024, and then it lasted 19 months before shutting down, and much less than that before they were already in financial trouble and not paying rent. I wonder how much money that Emmitt Smith himself lost on this venture. Probably a lot. Now, here's some backstory to it, and that'll explain to you why this took so long to open. So remember, it was announced in 2021, so why did it take so long to finally open? Well, it was originally supposed to feature an executive chef named Rainer Schwarz. And Rainer Schwarz actually spent $2.2 million of his own money to get it all going. He claimed in a lawsuit that he was abruptly cut out of the deal by a minority owner of Emmitt's who somehow took control and physically locked him out. Now, this has nothing to do with the lockout that happened for the not paying rent. Before it even opened, Rainer Schwarz found himself locked out, so he claimed, by a minority owner who didn't really have the right to do so. So I don't know how the lawsuit ended up. This is a 2022 or 23 lawsuit. But I know for sure that Schwarz did not end up being the executive chef there, even though you can see the announcements that he's going to be the chef. If you go to Chef Rainer, that's Rainer, chefrainer.com, you can see the announcements about Emmitt's, but any link you try to click there is dead. The actual executive chef that ended up being there when the restaurant opened was someone named Anton Ellis. I don't know much about him, but that was the chef and didn't work out under him. They may have actually done Rainer Schwarz a favor by locking him out and keeping away from this business. I don't know if he got his money back, $2.2 million he spent. Emmitt's was originally planned to be a much bigger deal than just a restaurant. It was supposed to have a cigar bar and nightclub. The nightclub was going to be called Club 22, and it would be called the Players Lounge during the day. And it was supposed to also have a live music venue, and the whole thing was supposed to be a 16,000 square foot facility. But it did not open with all that stuff. It just opened as a restaurant. Supposedly more than $20 million was spent on Emmitt's before they even opened the doors. So that's a lot to come back from. It just looked like they didn't know what they were doing, spending way too much money, not assessing the market properly, and a lot of internal drama. And as a result, the whole thing went belly up. That's pretty amazing that the staff getting notices that they weren't going to be operating much longer, that in May they were told they're going to be locked out, and instead of them just giving up, they're like trying to make things work for 5 more months, and then one day they come to work up. Okay, the doors are locked. It was a good try. Like, it's very easy to just give up when that happens, when you know you're just not able to make a profit and you owe so much back rent. It's like, you'd think they would just say, screw it. But no, they worked until the final day. They worked until the final day, until they could work no more because the restaurant was inaccessible. So that is the end of Emmitt's. And I don't know why these places spend so much money but don't spend just a little bit on consulting. Why don't they consult with people who are in the know about how Vegas works, about what is likely to succeed and what is likely to fail? For example, if the management behind Emmitt's, or even Emmitt himself, came to me and said, we're going to open this restaurant in the Fashion Show Mall and spend a ton of money on getting this whole thing opened, do you think it's going to work? And when they described it to me, I would say no. I'd say people are not going to come all the way to the Fashion Show Mall just for this restaurant. They're not going to hassle with finding it within the Fashion Show Mall. They're not going to want to bother with the parking. It's just, you're going to pick up people walking around the mall. That's all you're going to get here. So if you want something that is going to be easier to access and easier to find and easier to park, you should open this up in a strip mall somewhere, or maybe within a casino. Something where you're going to get a lot of people that are going to want to come in and eat a sit-down dinner. But don't put yourself in the mall. And if you are, don't spend a ton of money where you're way in the hole before you even open. You got to keep this thing cheaper. I would have told them that. It's obvious to me. I know it sounds like I'm Monday morning quarterbacking here because I'm talking about how it's going to fail when I know it has already failed. I didn't even know it existed until it already failed. And that brings me to my other point is you have to market it. You have to have a marketing budget. I don't know what they spent the $20 million on, but it wasn't marketing. You've got to have people aware that it exists. Also, once it opens and people are complaining on Yelp, then you need to take those complaints to heart. And a lot of restaurants make this mistake. A lot of them are run by people who are very stubborn, and they think, oh, these reviewers don't know what they're talking about. Oh, they have no taste. Oh, they're just nitpicking. Oh, we had a bad day with service. They just don't understand that you can't have perfect service every time. They make excuses for themselves. And in reality, when you look at reviews, and a lot of the reviews say the same thing over and over, then it's usually true. So if you see a lot of times that the food is too salty, then you got to change that, or else you're going to drive people away because the food's too salty. If you see service issues, then you've got to correct those. You've got to correct whatever is within your power to correct. Some things are easier said than done, but correcting service issues and making the food less salty should not be that difficult. And if you don't listen to the reviews, then you will lose customers and your restaurant's going to fail. I've seen many restaurants fail just because they were too stubborn and did not want to believe the negative things being written about them. Anyway, this was an epic fail, and it's very common that athletes invest in things that they don't really understand, that they think are a good idea. So I'm sure Emmitt Smith, oh, cool, I'll have a restaurant in Vegas, and at first they had these grandiose plans with a nightclub and a day club and live music, and he just pictured the place that everyone would come and hang out day or night while spending all kinds of money, and it'd be a huge thing in Vegas, and just ended up a restaurant that people didn't visit, and the whole thing failed, and the rent was expensive, and I mean, what a disaster. I wonder how much he put into this himself. Now, it's possible that using his name was most of what he put into it. Maybe he didn't invest that much personally, and just associating with him is what he brought to it. I hope so. I hope he didn't just get fleeced here by people who were either dishonest or incompetent or both. But I've known a lot of different stories of athletes that just haphazardly invest in something that seems cool or seems like it'll be a good idea, don't put much research into it, and then lose their ass. And unlike when they were playing and they can just keep making more money, when you're a retired player, your income is much, much less, unless you're one of the few lucky athletes that manage to get a high-paid media job or something. But Emmitt Smith, I can't imagine, is bringing in a lot of money at this point. He's just living off the money that he already generated. So you have to watch out for this. You have to have someone advising you if you are a former pro athlete with a lot of money before you invest in things. I've seen so many of them go broke or lose a lot of money because they didn't do their research. I say this over and over about Vegas. You need to do your research. If you're going to open up any business in Vegas, you need to do your research, whether it's a casino or a restaurant or some kind of attraction. There are a lot of people in Vegas that are in the know that will tell you, oh, this sounds like a great idea, or this sounds like a horrible idea, or something in between. But you got to get impression from people who live there, or at least once lived there and know it pretty well, and can tell you truthfully the good and the bad about what you're doing. And if they tell you it's going to fail, believe them. Because it's not that hard to figure out if you're familiar with Vegas and have a good mind for these things. But it seems like they don't even try. It just seems like they just go forward with it and just assume it'll work. They come with every reason in their head why it's going to work out. And a lot of times it does not. I want to quickly mention something, and before I get into this, I want to have you understand I'm not endorsing this, I'm not guaranteeing this, but I will assist with the process. I'm just doing this as a favor to somebody who brought it to me, and I think maybe someone who's listening could benefit from this. But I make no guarantees, okay? A guy contacted me who has a seat to an event at WSOP Paradise, which is in the Bahamas. He won it on clubgg.com. He did send me the screenshots of how he won it. And if you want to go to this and you want to get a free hotel room, he's actually selling it very cheap. And he asked if I could just put this out to my audience that this is available. And again, this is not a friend of mine. I don't know him. I've never met him. But I figured that, if you guys are interested, then you can get a hold of me and maybe I can arrange it. Because I would actually do this myself. I just can't make these dates. But I think this is something you could do without really taking much risk here, especially because I will get involved to escrow the whole thing. So here's what the story is. I'm just going to go through this quickly. So a guy messaged me in September that he won a 5K WSOP Bahamas package on Club GG, and it includes a $2,750 buy-in seat to the Mystery Bounty event and 6 nights at the Atlantis Resort in Bahamas, plus what's called complimentary buffet access, whatever that means. The hotel is from December 3rd through 9th, and he can transfer this to you. It's transferable. So now you may say, oh, this sounds like a scam. Why are you even advertising this? Well, I'm getting nothing out of this. I don't know him, but I'm willing to escrow this. So the way it would work, and I'm just doing this to help here. You would send me $2,000. That's all he's selling it for is $2,000. It's a 5K package he's selling for $2,000 now. You'd send me the $2,000, and I would hold your $2,000. And then I would tell him to send you the package. And once you verify with Club GG or whoever you need to verify it with that the package has actually been transferred to you, then you can tell me you verified it, and then I would release the $2,000 to him. If he were to not send the package, or there's no way for you to verify it, then I would just kick back your $2,000, and that would be that. Now, if something goes wrong after that, I'm not taking responsibilities. That's the one caveat I'm putting here. As far as I'm willing to go is escrowing, but after the escrowing is done, then that's it. But I believe once it's transferred, it can't be untransferred. And you can ask them that too. But if you're interested in going to the Atlantis Resort in Bahamas for 6 nights on December 3rd until the 9th if you want, and get a $2,700, actually $2,750 Mystery Bounty event seat, and get all that for $2,000, then get a hold of me, 775-372-8355, and we can set this up. If I could make these nights, I would. I would totally take this 5K package for $2,000, because I would get a ticket worth $2,750. I'd get a discount right there, and then I'd get the free hotels. It would be a nice little vacation. I just can't make it. So I told him I'd mention it tonight. Our final topic involves a scam, but not a scam having to do with poker, and not even a scam directly having to do with gambling. It was a crypto scam, and the victim did not have to post about it. He made himself look kind of gullible and stupid, and he is a semi-prominent person, but he did post how he was a victim here, hoping that others would learn from it, which I admire because, again, he could have just suffered in silence. There was no way he'd ever get his money back, and he knew it. So he could have just let it go and privately kicked himself for it, but instead he put this out here and allowed people to laugh at him about it, mock him if they were so desiring to do so. So you have to give credit to anyone who's willing to just admit that they got duped like this, especially for this much money. It's a $1.25 million scam, very lucrative scam for those that pulled it off. So let me tell you what happened. Erik Bergman is a name you probably don't know, but you may have heard of the company that he founded. And if you haven't, you've probably read things from them and don't even realize it. Erik Bergman founded Catena Media. That's C-A-T-E-N-A, Catena Media. I hope I'm pronouncing it right. And they specialize in what's called lead generation for online gambling. Basically, they create content about online gambling, and then they harvest the data on the users consuming it, and then they sell that to gambling sites in order to directly market to these people. So they'll write articles or create websites about interesting gambling topics and somehow get people to sign up and give their emails, and then they'll have the emails of people who are interested in online gambling, and then they'll sell them to gambling sites who then know to market to these people, which can be very valuable. So that's what lead generation is. And that's what Catena Media does and has been doing. Bergman started this with a friend of his in 2010, and it's grown huge. So a very successful guy, and he built it from nothing. Some poker media figures ended up working for Catena Media, such as Jess Wellman. I don't think she's there anymore, but she was there at one point. Anyway, Bergman confessed on X that he was scammed for $1.25 million in a complex impersonation scheme. And he was victimized by foreign scammers pretending to be MrBeast and other huge social media names who convinced him to invest in a supposed new coin that was started by Coinbase. Of course, this coin didn't really exist, but he was convinced it did. It's actually a pretty complex scam, but at the same time, it wasn't that complex. So this is what he tweeted on August 29th. I got scammed for $1.25 million. I feel ashamed and stupid. The story starts with me getting a phone call from MrBeast and Mark Rober. They asked me to donate money to Team Water to build wells in Africa and help people get clean water. I was surprised by their call. We've met before, but hadn't spoken in years. Now, let me stop right here. You may say, wow, that's a pretty advanced scam to be able to call him and sound like MrBeast. They use AI? No. This part wasn't the scam. MrBeast and Mark Rober really did call Erik Bergman about the donating to Team Water. So that part is real. He said, I took a few days to think. I focus on learning more about the water crisis in the world. I decide to donate $1 million. So that shows you how successful this guy is. He gets a call from MrBeast saying, hey, would you like to donate to this water project in Africa? Let me think about it. He looks up, yeah, they've got water issues in Africa. Okay, cool, I'll donate $1 million. So MrBeast, he writes, gets excited about this and tweets to the world about the donation. I'm proud and excited to be part of this amazing campaign. So he did something nice here. He donated $1 million to MrBeast's Team Water to help build wells in Africa for villages where they have trouble getting clean water. All right, great. Very generous of him. About a week later, I get a message from Team Water on WhatsApp on my personal phone number. Now, that should be the big red flag. Getting a WhatsApp message. Scammers love WhatsApp. They are excited about the donation. They invite me on a trip with the top donors to Africa to see the wells being built and then stay for a few days for a wildlife safari. To go to Africa and see wells like this being built is a long-time dream of mine. I'm excited to go. I immediately say yes. They add me to a WhatsApp group with some of the top donors. Jimmy, a.k.a. MrBeast, is in the group. So is Mark Rober, and some well-known billionaires like Steak Eddie and Toby, and super streamer stars like Aiden Ross. Now, you don't have to know who these people are. I didn't really know them either. But these are all like top streamers with tremendous audiences. He writes, I can't believe I'm in this group. I feel like a 13-year-old boy wanting to fit in. They're all chatting and having good banter going on. I find myself writing a message, then deleting what I wrote because it didn't feel cool enough. I write it again, then delete it. I can't believe I'll be traveling with these people to Africa. Jimmy tells the group about another charity project that he wants to start. Everyone's eager to help out more. The conversation goes on for about a week. It's Friday, and I'm headed for a weekend trip with a bunch of my friends. I've been looking forward to this for months. We have a packed schedule, and I'm very excited. On Saturday, Jimmy, remember that's MrBeast, writes in the chat and tells us about this other opportunity. He has just signed a deal with Coinbase, one of the largest crypto exchanges that will launch their own crypto coin. Now, Coinbase is real. It is a very large crypto exchange. They do not have their own crypto coin. So basically, he's being told that they're about to launch their own coin, which isn't hard to believe because Binance has its own coin. So it would be believable that Coinbase could do this. They haven't said they are doing it, but that's believable that they could. As part of a marketing collaboration, Jimmy has gotten the chance to buy in early on this coin. Uh-oh, I'm sure you know where this is going. As a thank you, he wants to extend this offer to anyone who donated over $1 million. Everything's secretive and important to act fast. That's another red flag. Whenever you're told you have to act fast to buy into something, you got to be real careful. This is where I should have stopped. When someone needs you to act fast, it's often to get you to do something without thinking. Exactly. But I didn't. Everyone in the chat gets excited about this. I know some of them are real crypto experts and they jump on this opportunity. I don't know much about crypto, but the 13-year-old boy in me wants to belong. If they're excited, I want to be excited. I also don't want to be the only one on this trip to Africa that didn't join on the investment. I find myself calling a crypto friend telling him about this, and he says if Coinbase is launching a coin and we get early access to it, it's a sure win. I get even more excited. Now, let me stop here. This crypto friend is a moron. The crypto friend should have said, wait a minute, I know a lot about crypto. I haven't heard anything about Coinbase launching a coin, so make sure this is real. There's a lot of scams in crypto. Make sure this is real. Do not send any money. I don't care who says this is a real coin. Do not send a penny until you know for sure this is real. But he didn't. He's like, oh, well, if Coinbase is launching a coin, yeah, getting in early is going to be really lucrative. So what a dummy. So this guy got more excited, this Bergman guy. He said, I'm also very distracted. I don't want to be in my head right now. I want to join my friends for this workshop they're doing. I'm finally at this event. I want to get the most of it. Now, to be clear here, the friends he's joining right now, these are not the MrBeast group. This is just friends of his he knows from somewhere else that he's having a weekend with that's planned for months, so that's kind of distracting to him. I go to the workshop. It's all in my head. I keep thinking about this investment. It frustrates me. I don't want to make business decisions now, but I also don't want to miss out. The workshop ends, and I call my friend again. We're both excited, and we don't want to miss out. We say, fuck it, let's go. Within a few hours, we have sent $500,000 in crypto to the wallet we were given. Uh-oh. The chat is going strong, and people are even more excited. Steak Eddie wants in, but he's too slow. When he asks if he can get solved after the deadline, he's told it's unfortunately too late. I read it, and I can't believe a guy like that gets rejected. So basically, this Steak Eddie guy, he wanted to invest too. Remember, all these big social media stars are in this chat, one of them being the Steak Eddie. And this Steak Eddie guy, he wanted to do it too, just like Erik Bergman did, but Steak Eddie was distracted, and he didn't do it in time, and MrBeast said, sorry, you missed the window. I don't care how much money you have and how important you think you are. You missed the window. It's too late. You can't get in. So Erik Bergman's looking at this going, oh, well, sucks for Steak Eddie here. He just missed the deadline. The next day, Jimmy writes again and says there's a new chance to invest. Oh, isn't that nice? However, the price has now gone up from 15 cents per coin to 30 cents. The maximum investment in this round is $750K. I call my friend again. I tell him about the billionaire that got rejected. I guess Steak Eddie has $1 billion. And how everyone else is buying in again. I'm still at the event. I'm super distracted by other things, and we end up falling for it again, sending another $750K. So that's the $1.25 million, which, spoiler alert, he's not going to get back. It's now Monday. The retreat has ended, and I'm heading home. I still have a good feeling about all of this, and I'm excited. I'm also exhausted after the event, lots of experiences to process, and far too little sleep. On Tuesday, Jimmy writes one more time in the chat, saying this is the final chance to get it. The price is now 45 cents per coin, and everything up until now has been taken. Once again, I call my friend, and we say, let's go. We're about to send the money. But this time, something makes me stop for a second. Something in my belly says to look closer at the details. For the first time in these 72 hours, I actually stopped to properly think. And I see some details that are off. I know that Aiden Ross is American, but his phone number, that is the one listed in WhatsApp, is British. Why is that? For the first time since the chat started, I called Jimmy just to confirm everything. Because remember, he knows MrBeast in real life. They're not close friends, but they have each other's number. And MrBeast originally called him about this real donation he gave. So he's like, wait a minute. Let me call up MrBeast to make sure this is all really what it seems. So he calls Jimmy MrBeast. And MrBeast says, what are you talking about? And that's a punch to my stomach. I say, please say that you're fucking kidding me. And I send him a print screen of the chat. He looks at it and says, wow, I don't know what to say. Please tell me you didn't send them any money. And I reply, $1.25 million. The realization sinks in, oh fuck. The first phone call from a few weeks ago was Jimmy, the real Jimmy. The fundraiser for clean water was Jimmy, the real Jimmy. But the person reaching out from his team wasn't from his team, it was a scammer. The Jimmy in the chat wasn't Jimmy, it was a scammer. It was all very skillfully orchestrated. All the people in the chat were fake. All the banter was fake. The trip to Africa was fake. I feel the shame inside of me, the regret, the sadness, the anger. I've been fooled. So, in case you're missing how this happened, because MrBeast publicized that Erik Bergman had donated $1 million to Team Water, these scammers seized upon it, and they created a whole fake chat of MrBeast and various other famous social media influencers, and then invited Erik to it. So the chat was all scammers and him. And they were all pretending to be these different influencers, and they even had this whole ruse where Steak Eddie, one of the influencers who has $1 billion, was unable to invest in time. And they even had maximums to invest to make the whole thing look like it was real. That there were maximums, there was time limits, everything to make him think that there's urgency to do it and there's rules about it and to feel good that he's done it and others have missed out. That part was very, very clever. I mean, the whole thing was clever, but that was especially clever to have a scammer in there pretending to miss out. So he can feel superior to that guy and feel that he got in, this guy didn't. So then when the next opportunity comes in to invest, he wants to jump at that as well, and does. He writes, I feel the shame inside of me, the regret, the sadness, the anger. I've been fooled. I so deeply wanted to belong in this group that I acted way out of character. I trusted, quote, Jimmy, and I followed the peer pressure of the, quote, billionaires and the, quote, superstars. I broke so many of my own principles on how to make decisions. But at least there's a silver lining. I've been scammed before. The first time I was scammed for about $3,000 when I was 20, a fortune to me back then. That time I felt so ashamed that I didn't tell anyone for many years. The shame kept haunting me. This time the first thing I wanted to do was tell my wife. Later I told my parents and my brother. Then a group chat with many of my closest friends. I've gotten so much support. My brother wrote me a message that moved me to tears. I've read it over and over. I've also cried, I've screamed, I've punched. Then I've done it all again. I'm sharing this story partly to integrate it more, change the emotional experience from shame to anger to something else. I'm not sure what that is, but pretty much every feeling is better than shame. I already feel a lot less shame. The next time you fuck up, think of this story. Remember that we all fuck up sometimes. The next time you feel shame, think of this story. Remember the shame that can only live in the shadows. Tell people about your shame, and I promise the feeling will change. On a final note, even after this has happened, I'm still very proud to be part of Team Water. I still believe Jimmy and Mark are amazing. I struggle to find words to describe the positive impact they have on the world. Thank you for reading. Then he posted some screenshots of this chat. Now, this Aiden Ross, remember, he's an American. His phone number was listed as +44 and then a bunch of digits. +44 is the UK. I don't know why Aiden Ross, fake Aiden Ross, did not just get a U.S. number, which you can get without being in the U.S. I mean, I doubt this fake Aiden Ross was even in the U.K., so that was a dumb thing for them to do. Maybe they could have hit him for more if they just had Aiden's number as a realistic-looking U.S. number. And one of the other fake influencers in the chat, Ed Craven, had a U.S. number listed. So that was just a dumb mistake on the scammer's part. I don't know if this was all one or two people doing it together, or it was really a bunch of different scammers with each playing a different role. I will say that some of the writing styles were different, and some of them were better at pretending to be Americans than others. Fake Aiden Ross wrote, "Bro raised $12 million for clean water and he's drinking it all himself," laughing emojis. Then MrBeast said, "Guys, Coinbase going to set up investment pool for each of us. If you like to participate, send your deposit address in ERC20 investment amount in ETH, meaning Ethereum, and mail address to the Ellie." Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Guys, Coinbase going to set up investment pool for each of us. If you like to participate, send your deposit address, amount in ETH, and mail address to the Ellie. I mean, that couldn't be more broken English. And then Ed Craven said, "Will do, thank you for the opportunity." Aiden Ross says, "Ellie, I will send it when I get home." Team Water says, "Mark, Tobin, and Aiden, please send me your ERC address and other details, and Mark Rober says, give me 2 hours. All of them have a U.S.-looking phone number except for Aiden Ross. Now, it is pretty amazing this worked. I'll give the scammers credit that this was a good idea once this was announced publicly, then to just pretend to be these people and invite him to this chat about this Africa trip, and he didn't question it. So it was clever, but there's a lot of ways this could have failed. Number one, at any time, Bergman could have called or texted MrBeast about this, even if he didn't suspect anything yet. He could have just texted him, hey, I can't wait to go to that Africa trip with you. So thanks for inviting me. And then MrBeast would have said, what? What Africa trip? And then it would have all broken down. Remember, they bantered with him for about a week before getting any money out of him. So at any point during this week, he could have talked to the real MrBeast and figured it out. Number two, Bergman could have also contacted any of these other influencers that was being impersonated and, again, learned the truth that way. Number three, while some of these phony accounts like Aiden Ross wrote in believable English, the person behind the MrBeast account made a lot of grammatical errors, and it should have been obvious that this wasn't the real MrBeast. I don't know how he fell for this. Number four, Bergman could have Googled about this supposed Coinbase coin, and then when it didn't exist, gotten suspicious. And they also got lucky that when he did consult a crypto friend twice, that the crypto friend was a moron. So the scammers were fortunate that the crypto friend was an idiot and didn't see this as scammy, whereas most people into crypto who had any clue would say, oh no, something wrong with this one. There's no Coinbase coin I know of, and this sounds like a scam to get your money. So interesting that this happened. I feel bad for the guy, even if he has a ton of money. It's still $1.25 million, and I have to assume these are African scammers, in which case they really got massive money here. I mean, that's really one of the most successful scams you can have. These people are thrilled when they get a few $100 out of you. They imagine getting $1.25 million so easily. They must have felt like they were in heaven. And I'll give props to Erik Bergman for posting this all. He didn't have to say any of this. He could have just taken the loss and kept his dignity on X, but he didn't. He made everybody understand that he got ripped off here and that he was stupid. And that a lot of this was because he was so impressed that they were inviting him to be part of their little group, these cool influencers, that he gets to be part of them too, and he had stars in his eyes. It's kind of embarrassing too. The WhatsApp thing really should have given it away by itself. Whenever people want to move a conversation to WhatsApp, it usually has to do with scamming. What's shocking to me is that he never verified this with MrBeast, despite having his phone number. Like, he's being asked to send $500K to buy this coin. Why wouldn't you just check, just in case, that you're really talking to MrBeast? That this is really okay, that this is really what it appears to be. He just fires it off, just believes it has to be MrBeast. It was pretty insane. I call it a complex yet simple impersonation scheme because in one way it was simple, that they just saw it on X that he had donated $1 million and just impersonated these people, including MrBeast, and that Erik Bergman just fell for it and didn't question anything until it was too late. So it was simple in that way, but it was complex in that they had all these different influencers. It wasn't just fake MrBeast. It was like fake MrBeast with like 6 different influencers in there, all with a different story what's going on, including one of them, the Steak Eddie, missing out on the initial investment. Like, that part was all put together very well. But always make sure you verify who you're talking to. And sometimes when you get contact from someone you think you know, you actually are not speaking to them. You'll sometimes have duplicate accounts requesting you to approve their friend request on Facebook, and they'll say their other account's locked out. I've had that a few times legitimately, where friends on Facebook have been locked out of their account, they make a second account and friend me. And I always think at first, oh, this may be a scammer. And I will then ask them things that only they would know. And if they can't answer it, then I don't add them. And furthermore, don't trust anything that appears to prove who they are, but isn't concrete. I had one scammer on Facebook who had hacked someone else's account who knew me. When I asked them to prove themselves, they sent me a picture of this girl's ID. You'd think that would be good enough, right? Well, I said, no, I said, I didn't ask you to hold your ID. That's what you've decided to do, is send me a picture of you holding your ID. I don't want that. I want you to record a video of yourself saying today's date and that you really need $100. Because what had happened is this girl that I knew in person through Ken Scaler, not anybody I ever dated or anything, but she was very nice, and she was claiming she needed $100 or she's going to be kicked out of her apartment. And I was considering it just because it's someone I knew, and she was very nice, and she had always been nice to Ken, and she wasn't the type who would stiff me out of it, so I just wanted to make sure it was her. I was actually going to send her the 100, but I wanted to make sure it was her. And then, because it was a hacked account by someone in Nigeria, they had access to her email too, that they had also gotten access to somehow, and they found in her sent box that she had sent pictures of herself holding up her ID. So when I asked her to prove herself, then I got a message back, okay, here it is, and then it's her holding up her ID. And I said, no. See, I didn't ask for that. That's your choice to send me this ID. I don't want that. I want you to send me a video right now of yours saying, hey, Todd, this is me on such and such date, and I need the $100 for rent or something like that. And, of course, they couldn't produce that, and this is before AI had any capability to do that. So since they couldn't produce that and were making excuses, I knew it was really a scammer. So I didn't just fall for it because I got a picture of her ID. I used critical thinking and said, wait a minute, that doesn't prove anything. So always be skeptical and never feel bad to be rude. Like, don't say, well, I can't ask them if it's really them because they may be pissed off that I'm being rude and I think that they're lying to me and I don't trust them. No. You can always ask this. Nobody will ever be mad if you say, there's a lot of internet scams. I just got to make sure you are who you say you are. And, let me call you right now. Send me a video of yourself saying such and such and do it within the next 5 minutes. Whatever. Just always verify you're really talking to who you think you are, and also make sure that they were not tricked. So keep in mind, it actually could have been possible that what if MrBeast himself had been tricked? That's not what happened here, but what if MrBeast had signed a fake Coinbase sponsorship and didn't realize it yet? And then he was pitched the thing about the coin, and then he legitimately pitched the coin to other people. That'd be an even more clever scam. I don't know if MrBeast would ever fall for it, but if you could get him to fall for this, wow, can you imagine the people who would fall for it because he's validating it? So you also have to make sure that whatever you think you're buying is not just endorsed by one person, unless you know it's someone who would never get scammed. So that's also what you have to watch out for, is that even if you're really talking to who you think you are, they may have been tricked or scammed by somebody else and don't realize it yet. Anyway, interesting story. I just want to tell you about it, even though it happened in late August. And that's all for tonight. That's all for this show. See? This was mostly not political. At least not political when it didn't have to be. I did have to mention politics a few times, but that's because it had to do with the story. So I'm sorry for the infrequent shows, and, I do it when I can. When is the next one? I don't know. I'd like to say it'll be soon. Maybe it'll be soon, maybe it won't be. But at least I got this one in the can. So for those that joined me, happy to have you. For those of you who are listening to the archives, I'm happy to have you too. By the way, we were having trouble with the streaming reruns. It kept crashing, and I finally figured out what it was. I want to thank one listener who's given me information on when the exact time it was happening, so I was able to track down what was doing it. It was nothing malicious. It was just a problem with the system that I took care of, so that shouldn't be happening anymore. Call the Listen Line has had some trouble recently. I'll try to work on that this week. So if that is down, then try to listen just through the webpage, the radio tab on pokerfraudalert.com, or TuneIn. The TuneIn app has the streaming reruns as well. But I'll try to get the Call to Listen line itself working again as soon as possible. I don't even know why it stopped working, but just want to mention that. If you want to suggest topics, you can always text me 775-372-8355, and on the next show I might do it. You never know. And I don't know. Kind of out of things to say. Let's just sit back and listen to the All in the Family end song together. I can't cut it off early. I have to let the song finish. Feels awkward just sitting here, but that's okay. I earned it. I've talked for so many straight hours. I have a right to just sit here and listen to the end of the song. Oh, wait, here it is. All right, well, good night, everybody. Good morning. And shalom.